and welcome to episode 105 of Random Encounter, the RPG fan podcast. I'm your host, Robert Steinman, Pale Robbie on the boards. Joining me today is Steven Setsuna Meyerink.
Wow. First you said my name wrong, and then you said my girl name wrong.
Okay, I slurred a little bit. Thank you very much.
You're like Steven Setsuna Meyerink.
Oh, I forgot.
I'm the one who hasn't been using English all that much lately.
You know,
Setsuna-chan!
Senpai, seriously, do we have to do that? Steven, how you doing, sir?
I'm lovely. I'm playing Ikinie Toyuki no Setsuna, the new Chrono Trigger game from Square Enix.
Is this going to be a sequel where they just kill off the entire main cast and blame everything on the new hero?
Well,
that would be.
No, it's not the new hero's fault. Dalton killed them.
I know, but it was awesome.
And the creator already said that was a parallel timeline where they failed.
As long as Bill and Ted show up to fix everything, I'll be okay.
I would like it if Bill and Ted showed up.
That would be awesome.
And had an excellent adventure.
I like Bogus Journey. That's an underrated film. I mean, it's weird, but it's so awesome.
Movie.
That's a good.
I'll agree with you.
Speaking of excellent films, who else is here?
All right. Well, we also have Caitlin Firewatch Argyros.
Hi, Link is there on the boards. I'm super happy it's Friday.
Friday, gotta get down with Friday.
And a really nice Friday. It is so beautiful in St. Louis right now. It's weird that it's this warm, but oh my god, I can't wait.
I hate you.
Pretty warm here too, which sucks because I want it to be cold.
Oh, that's right. You like cold weather. You always get so upset when we're at E3 and we have to walk and it's all sweaty.
Yeah, because it's like 10,000 degrees outside.
You lived in South Carolina!
Yeah, and then I left because it sucks for more reasons than that. But
Whoa. Let's not get political.
We love you, South Carolina.
It's not a political thing. South Carolina just, forgive me, listeners that like South Carolina, but I don't agree with you.
The primaries are approaching. In
John
South
Tucker,
Carolina.
get in there.
Yes.
Hey, everybody. John Tucker, Tucker on the boards. It's okay. Steven's not running for office in South Carolina or anything. So.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
No, but he is running for office in our hearts, so...
Yeah, that's right. I am the incumbent.
I would vote for Frank Underwood. How about that? Can we do that? Oh, that's right. That's right. You guys, am I the only one who watches House of Cards?
he's...
No. I cannot wait. I cannot wait.
I'm getting Netflix just to watch season 4. I've been watching the episodes on Blu-ray, and I can't wait. And wait a minute. Caitlin, are you on Team Claire, or do you think Claire's screwing everything up?
I'm totally on Team Claire.
Oh, come on, Caitlin.
What? No.
She's messing everything up.
Sorry.
After the way season 3 ended, I cannot be on Frank's side. Okay, I can't.
That speech that he gave her was just amazing. They need each other.
It was horrible. I mean, it was a great.
They're both terrible human beings, of course.
Yeah, but he ranks a little bit higher on the terrible human being scale just because of the way he's treating her.
Oh, that's the reason, not the counts of murder or anything like that.
Well, you can be multiple ways.
That's problematic too, but come on.
Speaking of problematic,
you guys are talking about a TV show, right?
Oh yeah,
yes.
Yeah, and I'm just silently judging Rob for still not having Netflix. I'm one of those people who, when you tell me you're like, yeah, I don't have Facebook or Netflix, I'm like, millennial.
No. It's not for that at all. What I found was I had Netflix, and then when I met Jackie, I don't think you guys understand how our media shelf is. Maybe I should take pictures and put them at the bottom of this episode. We own like 3,000 movies. I
can watch 3,000 movies without having to have a single DVD.
I know, but like we own that much media, so there's not a whole lot I can do about it. And we just found that we enjoy owning stuff more than watching it on Netflix. So we got rid of Netflix for a while.
It's the bookshelf thing. It's like, I like the notion of an e-reader, but I like looking at a stack of books more.
Yeah, see, Rob, we're the same way. Got a million DVDs, but we don't have Netflix just because we'll never get through our freaking Prime wish list.
I know. Well, I made the mistake of watching Evangelion 3.33 last week, and my head is still like a jumbled mess of, now I know why the internet has rage. So
I still haven't seen the third one. First 2.
Did you like 2? Because I adored 2.
I liked how 2 was like, hey, remember all those things you thought you knew were going to happen? No.
And also it was a like, hey, guess what? The pacing's better, and Shinji's actually awesome. And look at like this amazing character moment for him. Yeah, the third one kind of pulls a Chrono Cross and just says, yeah, all that stuff that you thought was awesome, it was actually him screwing everything up. Oops.
Don't spoil anything.
It's
Watched
actually
it yet.
impossible to spoil because it's kind of an incoherent mess. I I literally could not spoil it.
Or impossible to spoil.
No, I'm not going into this right now. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about Firewatch. Let's
Let's
talk
talk
about
about video
Firewatch.
games.
Video games.
Okay.
I like radio games.
Oh, hi, doggy.
Uh,
Firewatch, Walking
So,
Simulator. Is it worth it?
I think it is.
Okay, cool. Tell
But
me.
I'd say it depends on how much you value having a long play experience for your buck, because it's not the longest of games. I think it's a really good experience for how I think you can finish it in like 4 to 6 hours, depending on how much you explore and mess around. So it's kind of on the shorter side of things, but it's still a really great story and great character interaction while you're having your adventure. So you play this guy named Henry, and his
Henry.
life is basically in shambles. And that's one of the coolest things. I wasn't even expecting this is how the game starts. You're told essentially this guy's backstory, and it starts off, kind of sweet and nice, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. And I was left kind of beside myself at the end of it. That was an amazing way to start the game. So he's kind of in a has a shitty life at the moment, and he goes for the summer to this national park to be a lookout for fires, and has some adventures, exploring the park, checking things out. He's got his boss Delilah, who you never actually meet in person. You only ever talk to her over radio.
Do you ever say hey there
Um,
to her?
What?
Do you ever say hey there to her?
Delilah.
Hey there,
It's
Delilah.
It's possibly an option. You have whenever you respond to her, you can choose different responses. So there's a little bit of role play and sort of a, dialogue tree kind of effect going on there. And maybe it's one that I didn't pick, but there are some funny little references to different things. I found a Last of Us reference at some point.
I'm always
There's
okay
some
with that.
there's some pop culture references, like for instance, you can adopt a turtle that you find randomly, I think, in the park, and
Turtles.
you can give it names that are basically puns on it being a turtle. One of those names is Turt Reynolds, which is
Yes.
the best thing ever. I could not pick it. But the writing is really good. Just the back and forth between Henry and Delilah. They're both snarky, sarcastic people and feed off each other very well. And it's believable, and you get very much endeared to both Henry that you're playing and this other person you talk to that you never see in the entire game. And that's a really cool experience. The game itself looks really pretty. It's got kind of a minimalistic thing going for it. It's not supposed to be realistic.
It's very The Long Dark in a certain way.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking as I was playing that this is PS4's Long Dark essentially.
At least until PS4 gets Long Dark.
Yeah, which is going to happen.
Well, what's interesting to me, and I haven't played Firewatch yet, but after you and Mike told me about it, it's certainly something I will play. It like there was an article, I can't remember where it was, but it was like people getting refunds after they finished and enjoyed the game, and they're like, it's too short. And it's interesting to me that like some people really do just define the value of the experience based on how long it was. Boy, that works out of context.
Wow.
Oh my.
But, like,
Wow.
Indeed.
No, seriously though, like you think about it, it's like 999 is a game that maybe takes 8 hours to finish, and I would never refund 9. If I had bought 999 when it first came out, I would never want to refund because that's like an unforgettable, excellent experience. And you go to a movie, and not that the media is the same, but you go to a movie and you spend 12, 13, wherever you are, dollars on a movie ticket, and it's like that lasts at most 2.5, 3 hours if it's Chris Nolan or a terrible Transformers movie. And, you know, why is the value assessment different just because at some point games took 500 hours to finish? Some of them still do. It's
Well,
it's actually sort of funny because I think back to when John used to be on the show, not John Tucker with us now, but when John used to be with us, and like when we first started doing the show, like the first year or something, he would talk about, he's like, well, I've reached a point where I don't want to play a game for 900 hours just because it has a million randomized events for me to do. I want a game that's 10 hours that I can finish. That's awesome. And I have come around to that.
yeah,
Probably because when that happened, I was unemployed. So, and had just finished college. And if there's anything I know about college, it's that there's a lot of time to sit around and grind. And now I don't want to sit around and grind. I want to play, you know, Virtue's Last Reward, or, you know, I'm playing XCOM, and XCOM is a game that seems like you can play through it multiple times. But it's like, you know, it's more the characteristics of the experience rather than the length of it. Obviously, I don't want a game to last 20 minutes, but...
Well, so, Caitlin, on that subject, is Firewatch a game that you would replay a bunch of times, or is it one that, like, once you're done one time, you're pretty much done?
I would replay it just because the dialogue choices. I don't know how extensive it is, if they really change things towards the end or whatnot. But just, you know, to see the different responses. I mean, you can be super sweet to Delilah. You can be, you know, an absolute dick to her if you want, and I would imagine that changes how she reacts to you. I don't know for sure. On the other hand, the story has you sort of exploring this mystery in the park. There's some weird stuff going on that you learn about shortly into your stay there as a lookout, and I'd imagine it's going to kind of be like other mystery games, like thinking like Heavy Rain and whatnot, where once you know what the twist is, it may not have as much of an impact the second time around. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's a point midway through where it got its hooks into me, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. This could potentially be kind of creepy. And it was still an interesting twist. It wasn't what I expected, and it might potentially be a little bit of a letdown for some people, depending on what they expect or what they think the twist is going to be. But it was still a really cool twist, and kind of it was actually kind of neat now that I think back on it, that they didn't go super creepy, super ridiculous. This is some, you know, weird level X-Files kind of crap going on. It was a believable twist that sort of humanizes some of the characters and the events going on.
So it seems like, you know, I think with the case with a lot of story-heavy games, I think mechanics people will probably balk at the notion of A, the game's price, and B, like I don't want to replay it just to get a different dialogue thing. But if story-heavy type experiences are something you enjoy, it seems like repeating it would be more worthwhile.
Yeah.
Well, and with things that have a mystery, it seems like, especially if it is only a few hours, you know, long versus, you know, say an 80-hour game. There's some more to be had in terms of, like, all right, now I know how this ends. Could I have seen it coming? You know, or what clues did I miss the first time around just because I didn't know that was how it was going to go?
Now, are there any puzzles in the game at all? Maybe I'm being the mechanics guy right now that Steven's kind of talking about, but are there any puzzles, or is it just, you know, you're in it for the narrative, that's the main draw, and like the beautiful scenery?
It's pretty much you're in it for the narrative and the scenery. There are no puzzles that I'm aware of, unless I totally missed something.
And I didn't mean that as a negative.
Well, no.
I said, so it's not The Witness, in other words. Which you're in it for the puzzles.
No. It's more in the style of, I guess, other walk around, pick up stuff adventure games. I haven't played games like Gone Home and whatnot, but I think it's probably more along those lines. There's no, there's no combat, nothing like that. You're walking around, you'll pick up some notes, you might have to rappel down a cliff here or there, do other things, but it's not a mechanics heavy game like that. It's mainly about the story and exploring the park and figuring out what's going on and having awesome, snarky conversations with your boss over the radio.
Got it. And I didn't mean that as a negative. Like, I think it's just important for people to know what they're going to get out of the game. And if it doesn't sound like something that you're interested in, it is what it is. And to get back to what Steven was saying, like, I agree with you, Steven. I don't want to be playing a game for 100 million hours anymore because my free time is very, very limited. But if you were, say, a high school student or a college student and you spent money on a game, you probably want to play, if money's tight, you might want to play a game for lots and lots of time. And so, you probably shouldn't buy Firewatch unless you're really into narratives, because you need to understand that this is not a game like XCOM that you're going to replay over and over again necessarily. And B, I can kind of see where they're coming from. Like, when I was a kid and I only got like 1 or 2 games every month or so, it was a big deal that I get a lot of bang for my buck. Like, I was listening to Retro Encounter talking about Parasite Eve, and one of the reasons I didn't pick up Parasite Eve as a kid is because when I heard it was only, a handful of hours, I was like, well, I kind of worked my butt off this summer to earn some money, like some allowance money to buy a game. I don't think I want to spend it on a game like that. You get what I'm saying?
Children.
I know. It's, again, as you grow up, your priorities are going to change a little bit.
No, that's absolutely right. It's, that goofy sort of inaccurate truism of, time, money, and games to play. Pick 2.
Yeah, I mean,
when
go ahead.
Thinking another Retro Encounter, the one they just finished. When the first Pokemon game came out, I was just out of college, I think. I maxed out the clock on that thing at 256 hours. Now I've played like every generation since then. Don't know if I've ever finished any other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I really like them, I keep buying them.
Well, it's it's. I no longer consider having gotten my money's worth out of a game finishing it necessarily. Like, I like to finish almost all the time, the games I buy, but. The reality is that oftentimes I'm like, I really like this, but there are 10 other things I want to be playing as well. So I want to also try those out.
Yep.
So Firewatch seems to get your recommendation, Caitlin, correct?
Yeah, I enjoy it. I mean, it's $20 unless you're I think if you pre-ordered it, and for the first week or so it was discounted for PS Plus members. So I only ended up paying $18, but I'm fine with putting that money down for the experience that I got. The only downside is I don't know if this is just the PS4 version, but it kind of runs at times a little crappy. It skips. Like, I don't know. I guess it just can't handle maybe all the pretty graphics, which is weird, but occasionally it'll skip around. It's not game breaking. It doesn't really interfere with your ability to play it. It's just a tiny bit of immersion breaking when it happens, but it doesn't really tarnish the experience that much. It's just a technical issue. So that's something to think about if you're trying to decide if you want to get it on PS4 versus PC. So
I feel like I read that there was a patch today to work on that a little bit. This being Friday, as we're in the middle of recording. Maybe that's true.
That I wouldn't be surprised, and hopefully that helps a little bit with the performance. It's still a really pretty looking game, and considering that it isn't a super long experience, I'm more lenient. I guess with that kind of thing. If it was a much longer game, or if it was more mechanic heavy, I would be like, But I mean, I had a few hiccups out of. I probably spent like close to 6 hours because I take longer playing games, but I can deal with that.
And if anybody listening, if you're listening to this within 2 weeks of February 21st, Sunday, Caitlin's going to be streaming it on our Twitch channel Sunday morning.
No, I'm not.
That day. You aren't?
I am not.
Who's playing it then? Somebody's streaming it. I'll have to look and find out.
Somebody's
Now
doing
I've
their
screwed
job
up.
on the site.
I
Let
screwed up
me.
my
I
own
can.
plug.
I'll pull it
Well,
up real fast.
it's not me. That's not that much I know. But
It is not
yeah.
high.
But yeah.
Robert.
Not
okay,
Robert
there you
Fenner
go.
is going to be
Mr.
playing
Robert
it.
Fenner will be streaming it. Yeah, and the recordings stay up for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
So,
so definitely check it out.
All right, so Firewatch. Okay, we gotta talk about XCOM. Steven, you are playing the original XCOM right now, right?
I'm playing Enemy Within,
Okay.
which I did not know you hadn't played. And every complaint you've ever told me about the game seems like it was addressed by Enemy Within. So
Okay, so a little bit of backstory here. So the original XCOM, I say original, but the reboot of XCOM was Enemy Unknown, and then a year, maybe 2 years later, they decided to do Enemy Within, which was a huge expansion to the original game, gave you lots of new character classes, a lot of variety. And you've really been enjoying it. Like, we've been texting back and forth when I'm, supposed to be teaching, and you've been kind of. I always knew this was going to be your type of game more than me, and I like Enemy Unknown.
oh, it's
quite a
blast,
bit.
yeah.
And tell me a little bit about your experience with it. Like, how are you feeling about it?
Well, so the original release, Enemy Within, I've been talking to my roommate a lot about it because he's played the games multiple times. So when Enemy Unknown came out, it was a little more linear in terms of progression. It was your guy killed two dudes, so now he gets to pick one of two skills, and
Uh-huh.
are you making him the utility one or the damage one? And the aliens were the only enemy, and your options for customization were a bit more limited. So with this one, you have the ability to augment your soldiers into mechanical troopers, which are awesome, and that's a class unique on its own.
It's sort of
with
like
its own set of customizations, and then there are also genetic modifications. Like, you can give a guy muscles so he can jump onto the roof of a building from the ground. You can get like chameleon skin where, if you were not seen by an enemy at the beginning of a turn and you aren't spotted after you move, you stay stealthed permanently. So there's a lot of really interesting types of customization. There's medals, which are, if your character does some sort of distinguished service, like, if they take out 5 guys with headshots, or if they're really good at fighting in urban situations, you get medals, which award additional special powers. Like, if you hit an enemy, every ally gets an extra 10 aim on it. And then it added an extra resource that you collect during missions that's sort of timed. So it forces you to move quickly and not sort of just camp the base and, wait for aliens to come to you. It added human enemies, like a terrorist cell, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, beyond what it added, considering this is a 2 or 3 year old game we're talking about, it's just the type of strategy in that game is the kind that I find very compelling, where you're making macro level decisions about your base. And, like, how am I going to construct my base? How am I going to arrange the different facilities? Where am I going to send, jets to protect from UFOs? So you have that macro level of strategy, but then there's also the, I manage my squad and I'm in combat. I have to take cover. I have to, protect my, do whatever objective you have. So it's sort of the 2 layers of peanut butter together.
Mm-hmm.
That I find work really well. It's a little derpy in times in terms of, like, sort of goofy visual bugs, but, like, I have not experienced anything I would consider a glitch. Again, this is a game that's multiple years old now, so it's been patched. But, and then there's this thing called Second Wave where you can tweak the game. Like, for example, is a mode called Save Scum where it re-rolls all the random dice stuff every time you load your game. So, if you have a character that's guaranteed to get critted on the next shot, that does not happen over and over again, which I recall was a complaint of yours, was that the game has predetermined every outcome at the beginning.
Right, and that was actually one of the reasons why we didn't cover the original XCOM as an RPG, is because, like you said, not only was the character progression very limited, but it was also the numbers were kind of already worked out at the start of the round, and they took that criticism with Enemy Within and with some of the mods. Like, I know there's the Long War mod to make the game longer, and
one of the things
they really
that they
listened to a
also
lot.
added, one of the modifiers I'm using, because again I haven't played before and I'm playing on classic difficulty. There's a mod that makes it so your characters have random stats when you get them, so it's not like I think it used to be that they were predetermined, but now it's like you can get somebody that has phenomenally high aim, but like terrible will. So I think that adds a little more unpredictability. And I know you hate unpredictability, but I, in this kind of game, really love it. So I like the idea of like, oh, well, this soldier's got bad aim. I got to find a good use for him.
Hmm. And
And
the
these are all modifiers you can, they're check boxes you can tick. So it's very cool.
Mhm. And the unpredictability, I totally get what you're saying. I mean, I am a little less uh, willing to accept unpredictability. I think sometimes it can be done really well. We talked a lot when you weren't on the show about Darkest Dungeon and how I have issues with that game, but I think the unpredictability, for the most part, works in that game's favor to create a lot of tension. When I played Enemy Unknown, I didn't have a whole lot of problems with it, but I did have those odd moments. I had those moments where the unpredictability, if it makes sense, it seemed unreasonable. Like a moment where my sniper was behind cover and he would blow up the piece of cover that he was standing behind. When it's a very rigid system in the original XCOM, and it is in the sequel for that matter, where when you attack, that ends your turn. It's very rigid in that structure, and so you could have a scenario where your sniper just took a shot, blew up their own piece of cover, and they're screwed. Like they are now out in the open, and I've never known a sniper to suck so bad that they blew up their own piece of cover. That seems a little.
Well,
Does that make sense?
that's
Like,
looking. I mean, yes, that makes sense from a logical standpoint, but from a set of game mechanics,
yeah,
it works within the game mechanics, and you do get abilities that let you move after shooting.
right. Now that unpredictability did not keep me from beating the original XCOM Enemy Unknown. I did beat it. I think there reached a point probably about the mid game where the game became incredibly easy. Like my characters were just too strong, and I was steamrolling everything. And it seems like they've listened to a lot of those criticisms with XCOM 2. XCOM 2 is weird. XCOM 2 is a really, really hard game to talk about right now because if I'm being very honest, and I know I have a tendency to use a lot of hyperbole on the show, and I get a lot of criticism for that, and I understand. XCOM 2 feels like an early access game right now. Like if you told me, hey, we're working on this game right now, it's not quite finished, here it is though, and tell us what you think of it, I would be much more lenient to XCOM 2 right now. XCOM 2 feels half finished in a lot of ways. It is.
And not half finished from a mechanical standpoint. It sounds like from a polished standpoint, like nothing works.
Let me talk about the polish and that stuff first, and then I'll talk about some of the mechanic stuff, which I think is questionable but debatable. Okay, if that makes sense. Like questionable but debatable. The game runs atrociously, and granted, I have a mid-range PC right now. But the game, there is no reason why this game should be dipping down to 20 frames a second constantly or hitching for 30 seconds when it's doing, I guess, a calculation behind the scene. I'm not really sure. It's not running very well at all. There's been a tremendous amount of glitchiness, a lot of characters, enemies shooting through walls, those moments where you're like, well, my guy can't hit them right now, but this guy seemed to have no problem shooting through 3 walls and blasting me in the face. That came up a little bit when I played the original Enemy Unknown. It is way more prevalent right now. Like lots of instances of, okay, why did I just get hit there? Like, I couldn't see that guy, but they could apparently see me through 3 walls, and I just lost my life. Or the snake-like enemies that are actually really cool in the game attacking me through walls, like across the map. Moments like that are just like, this doesn't feel really good right now, guys. Like, I was really surprised because when the reviews came out for this game the week before release, it was like everybody was talking about how awesome it was. It was like, oh, this game's so awesome, this game's so awesome. And Giant Bomb and Destructoid kind of held off their reviews a little bit, and it seems like they're having the experience that I am, which is like this game, I think on the surface, there's a lot of really good things to like, and I think it's going to get there, but it doesn't feel finished right now. I'm still kind of shocked that they were planning on this game coming out in November originally. Like I can only imagine what state the game was going to be in November. And if you look through the Steam forums, this isn't, oh, Rob the Glitch Lich is having his usual problems with the game. This is like Fallout New Vegas levels of WTF is going on with this game
Well,
now.
you know what my thought process is I'm going to make fun of a publisher here. It's probably 2K's fault.
I think that's fair.
2K is notorious for this sort of thing. If the game was slated to come out in November, it was probably a 2K mandated date. The developer probably was like, this game is not done. They said, okay, we'll delay it. And this was probably you have to release this because we have quarterly financials to think about.
I think you're right.
Release
really
first, fix later.
Yeah, and that plays into why this game is so hard to talk about, because they've talked so much about the mod support for this game. Like, this game's going to be incredibly moddable. It's PC only, so they're expecting people to make it's almost like they're expecting people to make XCOM 2 a platform. And so as that kind of experience, I can be like, okay, in 6 months, XCOM 2 might end up being one of the best games I've played this year. Like, maybe 6 months is even hyperbolic. It might be way faster than that. But right now, my experience playing this game has just been like terrible. Like, not understanding how things are working, major performance issues, glitches left and right, major save problems going on, which were all problems with Enemy Unknown when it came out, but it feels like they got really ahead of those, especially with the Enemy Within expansion. But this just feels, I hesitate to say it, but it feels borderline inexcusable. Like, how the hell was this game allowed to be released? And not to call out reviewers, because, we've all been there where we're reviewing a game that isn't released yet, and you kind of take the publisher at their word that there's going to be a patch to fix day one issues. But
Capcom.
Yeah, but man, oh man, like this... Whew, this is getting uncomfortable. Like, I do not feel comfortable reviewing this game right now. I don't feel comfortable playing it right now. So I've kind of taken a, like, wait and see approach of like, well, hopefully you guys can work on this a little bit. Like,
but that's
go ahead,
the
Tuck.
thing that we always run into with pre-release stuff, and when we write like a preview for a game that isn't out yet, we always try to be hopeful and say, if we do say, well, I had really bad frame rate issues in this, in this build, we'd also say, but granted, this game's not supposed to be out for another year or whatever. But yeah, when you get to, I think the problem is exactly what you said, that people were taking them at their word that there was going to be a patch that was going to fix all these issues, and then that just didn't happen, and it's a tough position to be in. I think probably from both sides, from ours and the developers. But
absolutely,
we're seeing it more and more often now with all of PC obviously, and with consoles being connected. All games now have day one patches that are supposed to fix all these little things, and they'll fix some of them, but they probably, there's always something that doesn't get fixed that ends up bugging people and whatnot. And I don't know. It's a trend, and it's because we can have these systems that are always connected that you can do that, and it's become like an expectation almost that you're going to have day one patches and you're going to have glitches that need to be fixed. And I do wonder sometimes, we all love the internet and we love, how connected we are, but if it isn't sometimes not exacerbating, but encouraging that kind of development process where it's like we can wait until day one and patch this stuff and have it running maybe better, maybe not, just because the infrastructure's there.
Right.
But then
go ahead, Tuck.
Look at like a Diablo 3.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite example of that, though, right? It came out, and although it was, by their standards finished, there were a lot of things that people really did not like about the way that the game worked, and they put in such huge changes since then that have really turned people's opinions around about the game, even though it wasn't broken, so it wasn't like a patching issue. It worked as designed. We just didn't like the design.
Well, and I think you bring up two really good points with Diablo 3, and I think they apply to XCOM 2, and also with a game that I've been playing a lot of recently, Dying Light, which is the idea of fundamental problems with the game, like glitches and performance issues, versus a game as a service that grows as an experience. So when Diablo 3 released, we bring it up all the time, and I apologize to the listeners. We got the one iTunes review that said that we're the greatest Dark Souls Diablo 3 podcast ever, and I chuckled at that. But at the risk of talking about it again, when Diablo 3 came out, there were all the Error 37, upheaval, and oh dear God, there were
Hey,
T-shirts.
look, for the 20 minutes Error 37 was a thing, it was catastrophic.
Yes,
Yeah.
for the 12
Or,
hours.
in the case of our beloved Dave's case, for the one day where Error 37 was a thing, although I know Dave had other issues, but
Right.
with the game.
But like that's one of those things where like, okay, the game came out, it was online only, it had some problems, but they managed to get in front of it. And then as a service, Diablo 3 has continued to expand into like a juggernaut of a game. Dying Light is a very similar example right now. They just released an enhanced edition of Dying Light. I didn't like Dying Light at all when it first came out. I gave it another shot, and I'm playing it right now. I am loving this game. Is it a perfect game? No, absolutely not. It's got major issues here and there, but it is fun as hell, and they've created a service, and they've just announced that they're going to support this game for another year with more content. So now XCOM 2 feels like it's in a similar pattern right now, where it's like they are planning on maintaining XCOM 2 and supporting it as a platform for potentially a long period of time. My question, however, is looking at some of the things that are in Enemy Within, and this kind of gets us to a gameplay discussion versus a technical issue discussion. Looking at the stuff that is in Enemy Within, I almost wish they had just continued to expand Enemy Unknown and Enemy Within instead of releasing a new $60 product, because there is some stuff in Enemy Within that is sort of kind of there in XCOM 2, but it's a little surprising how thin XCOM 2 feels. At least at the early stage I'm playing it, it feels
So I will say
thin.
I've read a lot of people who have finished the game, and I have heard that to not be the case.
Okay, that's fair.
Because Enemy Within waits a little while before it introduces those new mechanics. I've actually heard the opposite complaint fairly frequently from people who have actually played through XCOM 2, that the game has a zillion options and that it can actually be almost overwhelming, which
Okay.
I don't necessarily agree with the overwhelming thing. I can appreciate that something can be overwhelming, but I don't like the idea of being limited. So,
Okay.
but having that's pure hearsay. So,
I think what I'm finding with XCOM 2, to move away from the technical stuff and talk about the game for a second, that some of the problems that I had with XCOM Enemy Unknown, and this is good that Steven's here because we can kind of talk about whether or not they were addressed with Enemy Within. Some of the problems with Enemy Unknown are still there. So, like yes, you can see now when you move to a space whether or not you'll be able to attack aliens. That is a godsend, because that was almost a deal breaker with Enemy Unknown. It's like, well, I have to move to this location and then the game will tell me whether or not I can hit the aliens. That's not real fun to play this guessing game. Okay, so they do that in XCOM 2. Great, fantastic. But why don't you tell me if I'm going to gain that ever important flanking bonus when I move to the new location? Because that's kind of the point of the game, is to flank your enemies and get these major bonuses to hit, like outmaneuvering them. Now I have to guess whether or not when I move to that position I'm going to get the flanking bonus. That feels like crap. That feels like crap, and that feels like one of the things that a mod, much the same way I talked about Fallout 4, that feels like one of those things that the mod community is going to fix very quickly. But my question is, why didn't the developers fix that?
it sounds like you want Final Fantasy Tactics' ability to cancel your moves.
I think, you know what? If the game had that, if the game had a little bit of leeway, because what I'm finding is I move to an area and I'm like, wow, if I had moved one square more, everything would have been better. Like my plus to hit would have gone up. I would have gained a flanking bonus. But because I moved here, I'm now kind of stuck with it. I think you hit the nail on the head, Steven. If this game had the ability to rewind a move or two, I think Invisible Ink does this beautifully, where
See,
you get a limited number of times you can do that during a mission.
now, see, I disagree 100% with that. I
I
do
knew
not
you
think
would,
that
but-
I do not think that XCOM is the kind of game that is exactly what I like about the game, is that it is not a, well, you can experiment with every possible move and find the best one. It's more like chess. You have to commit to your strategy and your move, and if it doesn't work, you have to react to that.
But now I'm gonna.
Being able to take back an attack would essentially make the game trivial.
But now
Like
I'll,
at that point, you may as well just save scum the game because that's what you want to do.
well,
And I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with that, but
my two questions for you are: A, when you're playing chess, is it ever a 20% chance that the bishop will fall down and not take a piece? And B, are you save scumming the game? And I'm not saying that in an accusatory way. I'm saying, are you save scumming your experience with Enemy Within, or are you playing it very permadeath? I'm going to roll with the punches.
I'm save scumming it.
See, at that point, then it's the Fire Emblem point again, where I don't understand if you're going to advocate that the game is what the way the game is, I'm going to make mistakes, and that's part of the fun.
Because the strategy is built around that.
Okay.
Of the importance of a single move. Yeah, I'm loading back if I don't get the move right, but I don't want to just be able to rewind because that trivializes it.
I don't.
Well, I think there is a step in between though, between being able to actually rewind moves and being able to say, okay, if I move to this spot, then what will by chance to hit be? I can't guess that ahead of time. Okay, that's a bad place to move. What if I move to this other place?
I do think Valkyria Chronicles did it well in that you had your set movement range and you could hypothetically move there.
Yes.
But the problem is that's a very video gamey type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and like I don't necessarily think it's a problem from a gameplay standpoint. See, I'm thinking of it as in terms of an experience versus a mechanics thing. I like the idea of being like, I might move somewhere and not be able to get a shot at the enemy.
But you're also the guy who plays every game on the hardest difficulty, so
well, not all.
That maybe speaks to just like the way that you like to play games.
I see what Steven's saying, but for my money, I feel like he's adding a layer to what I want. Like, the layer is that he's just going to save scum the game. He's just going to reload it. I want a mechanic built in, much like the chariot system in Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling Together.
Yes, I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, I think that's the real... Or Invisible Ink.
But that's a game mechanic. That's not a... You just canceled your move.
Right.
If it's you canceled your attack, I'm not such a fan. But if the game is built in such a way to accommodate that, then I'm okay with that.
I think we're both in agreement then, because like if Invisible Ink does this so beautifully, because you get a limited number of takebacks, where when you use it, like depending on the difficulty level that you're playing at, you get to restart your turn. So if things go really bad, and granted that's much more a strategy game than an RPG, there's no ambiguity about like, oh, I have a 10% chance to stun this character. No, if you move to this location, you will stun them. It is very much a turn-based strategy game where XCOM has the RPG mechanics of having a plus to hit and things like that. It's one of the things I like about XCOM, but I agree with you. I think that if there's a gameplay mechanic built in, like a middle ground, then a lot of my frustration with this game is gone, because, man, I was save scumming XCOM 2 to a ridiculous point on just the handful of missions that I've played already. It's like it's almost absurd how much I'm save scumming. Like I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna play this turn out and I'm gonna save here and see what happens. Oh crap, something went wrong that I wasn't really anticipating. Okay, reload the game. Like, I just wish it was there. But I see what you're saying too. That ambiguity is one of the things that makes the game so fun and so chaotic. I just wish they had something there.
To be clear, I don't think there's anything wrong with when you move to a location, the game saying, well, if you move here, you'll be able to target these enemies.
Right.
Like, I like the idea of like, well, it seems like I'll be able to target them from here, and maybe not. But sometimes, you get gameplay, you get physics out of that, where it's like, well, visually it looks like I don't have line of sight, but then I shoot this guy through a car. Versus sometimes it's like, well, I clearly have line of sight, but there's one rock in the way along the way that, is preventing me from getting here.
Right. And I'm feeling a lot more of that in XCOM 2, because all the maps are procedurally generated. I'm feeling that so much more. I'm feeling those moments of like, wait, why do I not have line of sight right now? And it's like you said, it's like, oh, the rock is in the way or something. And I'm going, all right, I guess.
The rock is in the way?
yeah, like something like it.
Like Dwayne Johnson?
Oh yeah,
You
Dwayne
spell
Johnson's just right in my way. Like it again, I really like XCOM Enemy Unknown. Like I had issues with it, but overall I really enjoyed it. I think XCOM 2 is going to get there. And I ask our listeners to, give me some time. Let Give me like a little bit more time to see if they come out with a patch for the game. Because right now the game would review pretty low on my scale. Like, granted, I want to spend a lot more time with it. I haven't had nearly enough time to give an assessment, but it ain't working real well. So it's like, I feel like Dan Reichert
Well,
on Giant Bomb, who gave it a 3 on their 5-point scale, because he's like, well, the game's kind of busted right now.
well, it's like when I reviewed Divinity Original Sin for console. I love that game, and I gave it a high score, but I took a fair number of points off, and I was like, the game is at this point sort of unacceptably glitchy. And then it was funny. I had been trying to get information from the developer for a while and via Twitter, like asking them questions, and they never replied until I posted my review critiquing how badly the game needed a patch and how they hadn't said anything. And immediately they were like, patches and certification. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'm not saying they have to, bend to my every beck and call on Twitter, but it was nice that at least when something important came up, they were like, yeah, no, there's a patch coming. I'm like, okay, good. And then it came out and it was a giant patch.
Yeah. And my experience with XCOM 2 is different from like my review of Lords of the Fallen, which was Lords of the Fallen was not fun to begin with. Like, and then there were problems. So it was like I don't not only I don't like this game, and also it has technical issues. I think I like
I don't like
XCOM.
you, and also you're ugly.
I think I'm going to like XCOM 2, but right now I don't feel like it's in a state to properly assess it. And that's a real shame. I hope this game can get it together. And I kind of want to leave XCOM 2 just asking a question for you guys. Are we okay with games as a service? Are we okay with like the Diablo 3, Dying Light, hey, we're going to support this game for a long period of time and keep you coming back? I think I'm okay with it. I think I really like it.
I mean, obviously, I would like it for my games to come out complete.
Yeah.
I would be interested. I'm interested to hear what Tucker thinks of this too, and I would be interested to hear what Dave thinks of this because I don't think Dave would be a fan of this. And not because Dave doesn't care for Diablo 3. That's more of he doesn't like the gameplay. But I would like my games to come out complete, but we are in a current period where games as a service is more and more of a thing. And like that sounds very cynical and like business, like games as a service. But like, one of my favorite things is when Diablo gets a patch and there's a bunch of new items and I get to go play Diablo for another 25 hours and have fun with it again. I bought Diablo, I got the expansion for review for the site. I bought the original game, 5 years before, whatever it came out. And I'm like, that's $60 I spent. I have 500 hours on Diablo over the course of 6 years, or however many years it's been since it came out. That's so rare for an older game where it was like, well, we released an expansion, we're done. And there's nothing wrong with that method either, because a lot of my favorite games are like that. But I look at Pillars of Eternity, which is not necessarily games as a service, but they've been patching it and adding features and constantly updating the game, making it better and better and better. The Long Dark is another great example where that's eventually going to be a completed product, and Darkest Dungeon as well. But we are in a scenario where I think we've passed through the dark age of EA releases broken game. EA doesn't patch game. EA sells DLC. EA releases sequel. I think, that still happens, but I think we are now at the point where it's getting more common for a developer to release a game that might be a little anemic on content, like Splatoon, but that's a good foundation. And then a lot of times they're supporting it for free because they're figuring out that that's how you foment a community around a game, and that's what sells your game is people talking about it, people, going and making remixes of music from it, people doing fan art. Because if you keep your game relevant to the conversation by constantly adding interesting content to it, that is to everyone's benefit because the company makes more money because people buy their game and there's merchandise in their game. Players benefit because your game now has 4 new maps that it didn't have last month. My Super Smash Brothers has almost 60 characters in it, and I still play that every day almost. And that game now is almost 2 years old, or I don't remember when it came out. A little less, I don't know. But so if I were in Japanese, I would be using an expression now to sum up what I'm thinking. But Yeah, no, I don't mind. I would prefer if the game came out not broken, and I will eventually play XCOM 2, but probably not until they fix the mechanical issues and the glitches. Like, those are a little more unacceptable to me for a released product than,
Yes.
yeah, there's only 5 maps in our game. I'm like, all right, well, if the game is fun and you're going to be adding to it, then I'm more okay with buying into, we'll call it an ecosystem of content, which I hate. But I'm more comfortable buying into something if they're going to keep supporting it. Like Final Fantasy 14, you're paying monthly for that, but that's a game where you're paying monthly and every 3 months you're going to get a bunch of new dungeons and hundreds of hours of new stuff to do. Well, maybe not hundreds, but depends on how much you like grinding. But you're going to get new stuff to do, and I like that idea. I like the idea of the games I like evolving.
Okay. Tucker?
Yeah, so I guess I would say you covered a lot of what I was thinking of, and a little bit of the Dave angle there too. For those who have been listening long enough to remember, Dave talked about the business of games a fair amount. Yeah, I like the concept of the way that Diablo 3 has evolved and things like that. It's a middle ground between the pay every month for an MMO and the I'm just buying this game and it's done.
Yeah,
But I don't want it to be the only thing though.
absolutely.
Like I like the fact that although there were things that I didn't love about Paper Jam, which I finished recently. When I bought it, like that was the game. That's the whole game, and I have it, and I'm done. But I also like, just like Steven said, being able to go back into Diablo 3 every so often, and now there's more stuff for me to do that I haven't done before, even though I've already put a few hundred hours into this game.
Yeah, and it's not just the balance updates to Diablo in that case too. It's like you go in and it's like I'm playing a character I've played 3 times, but it's a totally different experience now, and that's a lot of fun because it's sort of like what they do with Pillars, where they're adding in their expansions and patches, they're adding things that improve the base game again. So there's merit to playing through it again because now your experience is different, and that's such a smart way to manage what's already a good base of like mechanics and gameplay.
Caitlin, what
Yeah,
do
and
you
I
think?
think, well, I think this is like when it's done well, this is the positive side of the coin of what we were talking about earlier about how perpetually connected systems allows for possibly cutting corners and getting a game out on release date, even if it's not super in a good state and super and maybe not even totally finished. The flip side of that is that having that connection allows them to continue supporting games like this and making them better. And I personally, I don't have any problem with that kind of support if it adds content to the game and gives me reasons to come back and keep, because, I'll play a game through to completion and then a lot of times I won't touch it again until I want to play through it from start to finish. But if you give me reasons to come back every so often with some, an expansion or DLC or whatnot, new maps, that kind of thing, that extends the life of the game and its value to me. It's not just something that I'm going to play once or twice and it's going to sit on my shelf until I get the urge to play it again, however many years down the line. And that I think is a valuable experience. I just the point for me would be making sure that it's running well, that it's not broken, but also that what you get day one when you buy the game is substantial enough to make you feel like I bought a game that will eventually have, DLC, additional content, but I didn't just buy a starter pack for this game that will eventually become what it's supposed to be down the road, which is unfortunately the way I felt about Destiny when I got it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I gave it such a terrible review.
Didn't they just announce that the next Destiny will not come out this year, but they will do like some kind of major content update?
They said they're doing an expansion, which is funny because they said last year they weren't going to do an expansion. So at this point, I think Bungie is literally deciding what they're going to do with Destiny next month, the month before. They're like, yeah, people didn't like the microtransactions. No more DLC. Wait, yes, DLC. No, not DLC. Let's go rebalance everything. Oh, glitch.
I blame their new CEO, Harvey Dent.
Oh, good one.
I feel like Destiny is the like bizarro world version of Diablo 3. Where like
Yeah.
Diablo 3 they really listened to the fans, they brought in a new director, they were like, "All right, here we go."
Well, they also changed a lot of Destiny staff too, and
Right. You know, now a lot of people that started out at Bungie working on Destiny are no longer there. It's kind of like, yee. I don't know. I talked a little bit about Destiny last time. Steven, I don't think you were here. I don't get that game. I'm glad some people like it, but my limited experience with it was a giant bowl of really? Like,
well,
and
I mean, to be fair, it'd be like playing Diablo 3 in the first year. Destiny has great core mechanics, and last time I played it, not a whole lot to do.
I will still
Yes.
contend that Diablo 3 was a hell of a lot more fun than I had
Well,
with Destiny.
yeah, that's because it was Diablo.
Well,
Before we continue talking about topic, we should continue talking about the games we've been playing too.
okay.
Yes. What game have you been playing, Steven?
Oh, so I've been playing Square Enix's not Chrono Trigger sequel. It's actually developed by Tokyo RPG Factory and published by Square Enix, which is a distinction I think is important to make. Ike nie to Yuki no Setsuna, which is, I'm going to roughly translate that as Setsuna of the Sacrifice in Snow. But it's that really pretty RPG they announced, I think last E3 or something. I don't remember when. It just came out yesterday or 2 days ago in Japan on PS4 and Vita. And the whole conceit behind this game is that it is sort of a return to the Chrono Trigger style RPGs of 15, 20 years ago, while still having like a nice modern look to it, and more importantly to me, having now played Pillars of Eternity and Divinity, shoring up some of the slower parts of those older games. Not that Chrono Trigger is not great, but it's not made with a blind eye towards advancements made since then.
Hmm.
Um, and so far it's a really distinctive game, because my fear whenever you play a game that bases its entire existence on creating a feeling of nostalgia is that this is going to feel like the thing I played before, or it's not going to have its own identity. It's going to define itself only in reflection against other media. And not that that's necessarily a bad thing. There have been lots of fun games that are very based on nostalgia. But my sort of willingness to play those games is a little lower now. But so far, I'm having a lot of fun with it. It starts out, you're a mercenary and, you're out rescuing a woman, and then some dude literally shows up out of the mountains and is like, hey, go murder this girl. And so
Whoa.
you go off to find Setsuna, this is all in the first 10 minutes of the game. Setsuna, the main character, and the story is essentially Final Fantasy X. There are bad monsters that show up every 10 years, and they start wrecking stuff. And then this village chooses a sacrifice to go on a pilgrimage to the end of the world, and then she sacrifices her life, and it holds off the monsters for another 10 years.
Is the monster called Sin?
It's like it's like a force of demons rather than one. And it's very FF10 in that regard. But the premise at the start of the game is that, okay, well, it's been less than 10 years and now monsters are here again, so we're going to go try to send another sacrifice even though it hasn't been 10 years. And so your guy shows up, attempts to kill her, and then ends up becoming her guardian. And that's sort of how the game starts. And so the way it plays is very similar to Chrono Trigger. You walk around on the world map, you go do what you got to do, you go to a town, you find out where you got to go, you do a dungeon, so on and so forth. And the similarities to Chrono Trigger definitely don't end there. It uses active time battle with 3 characters. There are no random battles. You just see monsters on the map. The battles are very snappy. They do not take long, maybe 15 seconds. There's no load times in between because, you get your XP and then you go back to walking around. There are double and triple techs between different characters. The first one you get is X Strike. It's called X Strike.
So they're making no bones about it.
Correct. This is a game that wears its inspiration on its sleeve, but so far has also managed to have its own identity in terms of tone. All of the music is piano solo, which is really interesting. There's no instrument other than piano in the music, which gives it this really interesting sort of chilly vibe, which is great because so far, and I don't know if this stretches to the entire game, but the whole world is covered in snow, so it's very like a cold environment. And I've done a few dungeons, and so far they've done a lot with the variety of, yes, we are in a world full of snow, but like I've had like a ruined town that's sort of been, overrun by demons. There's like this like icy beach. There's a really foggy area. So they've had a lot of interesting variety within that set of settings. He said, too late to back out. The character artwork is phenomenal. The main character looks like a derp. He wears a mask and a helmet, and he looks like he's wearing a pom-pom all the time, but everyone else looks cool. I have not gotten enough of the stones to really comment on it yet, and I don't know what they'll call them in English, but they're like stones of law or something, it seems like. But they're essentially materia. Like you get the first one you get gives you spin slash, which Chrono's first attack, and so there's that, finding the stones, and some of them give passive abilities, some of them give active abilities. So it differs from Chrono Trigger in that regard because you're not just getting text from leveling up. And there seems like there's a lot of like flexibility and breadth in the system there. In English, it'll be a lot of fun, I think, for people who like the sort of lore-heavy type stuff, because every weapon has a really lengthy description and a really cool name. I have not yet found Iron Sword. From like this might be a little too nerdy, but I'll share it anyway. One thing I like is that the main character's first sword is the Japanese character for Firefly, and the character for I forgot, but whatever. It's an expression that means diligence in studying, because the snow is lit by the light of a firefly. You're up late in the snow studying, so his sword is like diligence or something. It's really cool. So there's a lot of personality in the game that's very clear even from the outset, that I think is critical in a game that is trying so hard to ape mechanically Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy, 7-ish. It's gorgeous. It's made in Unity, which originally I was like, oh, good, I can't wait to play another free-to-play mobile game. I said pretentiously. But there's so much detail in the environments. Like, you go into houses and like every table has unique stuff set on it. It's sort of like what we all hoped 16-bit RPGs would transition into in 3D, and were for a little while. But, every house has been unique that I've gone into, like the people have like little maps on their tables, and like the texturing is really, it actually reminds me of the recently released Final Fantasy IX HD, which I guess I should probably talk about that because that came out. But the FF9 HD remake just has, not remake, but HD version has really awesome textures on the characters now that almost look sort of watercolor, that are so detailed. And the whole world map and everything in this game, which it has that sort of not quite hand-painted look, but very detailed and lush look to it. So I'm liking it a lot so far.
Okay. I really hope we get a date on that soon in America.
Yeah, it's. I wonder if they have not already been localizing it, and are going to announce it. I mean, they've said that it's coming to the U.S., so, or at least I think they have. I don't want to misquote anybody. They should let me translate it. But it, I definitely, I'm playing it. And I'm like, I think this is. Back when I was playing Xenoblade Chronicles and I was like super duper in love with it, and I still am, but like, when you're in the midst of a game and you can't talk about anything else, I was tweeting about how that game does not delve quite as much into the pandery, stupid, almost said a bad word, the pandery type of stuff that a lot of anime JRPGs do nowadays, where it's like, look, cute panty shots, wow, moe, it's not like I like you, Baka, type of things.
Are we talking about games that have the needless, let's go to the beach and hang out for a little bit so we get all the female characters in bikinis?
Look, I'm not diametrically opposed to that, but don't just be like, yeah, they're all in bikinis and it's not funny. Like Persona had a beach scene and that was funny. Both of them had beach scenes.
Everything can be done well.
Yeah, but yes, I'm talking about pandery type games that I know there's a big audience for, and forgive me, listener, if you like them, but I don't. Um, this is very much a sort of response to that of like, no, we want, for lack of a better term, we want classy games that feel like Chrono Trigger, not games that feel like I don't know, any of the million pervy JRPGs that gets released.
Criminal Girls.
Criminal Girls, yeah, we want that. And so I was playing this, and I was like, all right, first of all, if you like Chrono Trigger, I can see a planet in which you definitely shouldn't miss this. I think you'd like it, Rob. Doesn't waste your time. It plays really smoothly. There's not a lot of cruft to it. Um,
Is there any flanking bonuses? Because that's what I'm worried about in my games right now.
the game
All
actually,
about the flanking
the
bonus.
game actually specifically tells you, because you know how in Chrono Trigger, you run into an enemy and then everyone jumps into combat. The game specifically tells you that there is no bonus for running into an enemy from behind.
Wow.
You always hop right into combat and it goes turn based. Well, there is a bonus. It's you start with your ATB gauge and your SP gauge full. Because you have so there's a timing. I didn't mention this, but there's a button based timing thing too for special. You have a meter that's called, I think it's called the Setsuna gauge, different from the character Setsuna, and every character has their element. And when you fill the gauge up, if you attack and tap the square button in time with the attack, you can get extra effects. Like it'll make the area of effect on an area effect skill bigger. It'll make a single target damage attack do more damage. It can leave a singularity, which has, for 30 seconds you build SP faster, those sorts of things. And you choose when to do it. So that's sort of where the wrinkle comes into it from there. But it's very much a traditional type of Bravely Default-esque game. In terms of, it's not trying to reinvent turn-based battling, it's trying to refine it. And so I definitely think if you are the type of person to whom this is being marketed, you will probably find some merit in it. And I can talk more about it once I have more than 4 hours on it. And I think I might stream it later too.
All right. I'm excited for it. I like that snowy look of it. I remember when they first started showing art and screenshots for it, I was like, ooh, that looks really cool. And you're playing it on PlayStation 4, I want to say? Or are you playing it on Vita?
I'm playing on Well, right now I'm playing on Vita because I'm remote playing. I live in Japan, so the Vita version was sold out, and the PS4 version had plenty of copies, which is just it's still really interesting to me how different the Vita's fortunes are here. The remote play works great, though, because, I was thinking about the Vita version, but then it's like, why don't I just get the PS4 version? It loads faster, and then if I want to play in bed, I'll just remote play. So that's a good option, yeah. And it's, I don't know what it'll be when it's released in the US, but here it was about $40. So it's not being sold as a $60 game, presumably because it didn't cost what Final Fantasy 13 cost to make.
Which was way too much money.
I don't know. I think they made money on that trilogy overall.
Not to go back to XCOM too fast, but there were a lot of rumors that there was going to be a Vita version of Enemy Unknown that just never materialized. I think there was an actual patent for it. Never happened. You want to talk about that? That would work.
If the game ran. The game runs poorly on consoles.
Well, true, but that's one of those I'm just loving my Vita just as a system. It is enjoyable to play games on. I would prefer playing more games on it.
Yeah, no, 2K actually was pretty interesting, and they remember when they were also doing BioShock, they were BioShock Tactics on Vita or whatever.
They break my heart about that. When Ken Levine finally said what that game was going to be, a Final Fantasy Tactics in the BioShock Infinite world,
we all cried a little bit.
That's not fair. That's not fair.
That's interesting to me because 2K, I think more than anyone else, Borderlands came out on Vita, Yep. They were one of the few big publishers that was yeah, we're going to actually make Vita games. And then Sony decided that they didn't want to make Vita games, so nobody made Vita games. Well, sort of. There are a ton of Vita games, but...
Sorry, I'm in the middle of sneezing right now, so somebody has to take over for a second.
I use my Vita all the time, and like Rob says, you guys are both saying, it's pretty much just as a remote play machine. Because that way we can be watching something on TV or whatever, and I'm still grinding away at whatever game I happen to be playing on the PS4 at the moment.
Yeah, and you know
I
what I like about it too is that, for the first time, my roommate's been playing XCOM as well on PS3, and this is the first time where I'm like, damn, I want to use the TV, but he's using it. I'm like, oh, I'll just remote play it, and then I'm like, oh, remote play is amazing.
Mhm.
Um,
I don't use it as much because one of the perks of living by yourself. Um, but I do use it a lot. It's basically before I had portable systems and I would go down like to visit my dad or whatnot. I used to bring a console with me so I could play games. And thanks to PSP and especially Vita, I don't feel like that. I don't feel like, oh, I have to bring my PS3 or my PS4 to get my gaming experience because I can do that on my Vita and I can do it in a really enjoyable way. And it's just great to be able to have those games on the go. So I use it more just as it's basically my portable JRPG machine now.
yeah, well, it's got Cold Steel, which we all need to beat and talk about. Did you beat it?
No, I'm midway through chapter 4,
Oh,
so
I'm not even close to beating it, and I'm sure Rob isn't either.
Yeah,
So.
I got massively distracted by Dying Light. I apologize to everyone. I like it a lot. It is Derek was right. It's a little slow to start, but I am liking it. I think what got me was one of the first quests was like find this book that this girl lost, and I was like pixel hunting for it. Could
Well,
not find it.
not if you listen to her. It's not a pixel hunt. She tells you exactly where she
I
left it.
was looking right at
yes.
the couch. I swear to God, I looked there. I did not see it. Walked all over the place. It's like when Jackie tells me to find something in the basement, and I'm like, "Where is it? What's going on?" Like that
Okay,
was
to
one of
be fair, that's our personality flaw, not the game's.
yes, no, it's my own fault. It's my own fault. But it was one of those moments of like, all right. One thing about Cold Steel, I'm glad you brought it up. Are the boss fights supposed to be super long? Because I feel like the boss fights are like, I'm just whacking the hell out of this thing, and I
The
just
first
want it to
few
die.
are pretty lengthy, but as you get more abilities and
Okay.
more things, they take a little longer than your regular fights, which I think is important. But
Yeah,
They have a lot more health.
yeah, they definitely have a lot more health. So early, it's like any game where early on you don't have as many options, so your recourse is hit the guy.
Okay, I think that's what I was
And
struggling with a little bit.
also, depending on where you are, you may not have a lot of people with access to their S-crafts yet. And you also unlock more uses for your link ups. Like you don't get the rush option for links, I think, until chapter 3 or is it
Okay.
chapter 2? It's
Okay.
one of those. So it gets more complex the more you go, and that adds to your combat options.
That's not me. That's not me
But
saying I'm not liking
bosses
it. I'm digging it.
bosses are also noticeably more difficult than other encounters, and towards the end of the game, they get increasingly punishing in a good way, like in a challenging way. So
Right. I think what I was finding was like the actual regular battles were taking a little bit longer than I was expecting, and then I got to like the first real, the real boss after you do the like prologue dungeon. I got to the first real boss, and I'm sitting there going, this guy's just taking a lot of hits, and like, okay, I'm healing every 2 rounds, and I'm doing my buffs. I like the fact that you see a significant increase to your stats when you do a buff.
Oh yeah,
really,
buffs are like
I,
actually useful.
yeah, I really like that. That's one thing Darkest Dungeon does very well.
overpowered.
Yeah, but like, I just felt like it was taking too long. I'm like, am I doing this right?
I
Like,
said the exact same thing when I started playing. Like I was literally texting Caitlin and Mike when I was coming back to Japan. I was like, oh my god, why does Falcom just have this freaking obsession with their random battles taking 600 years? But it very quickly, with their battles taking 600 years, and it very quickly becomes much faster paced.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
but it's also supposed to be. It's still going to be a slower paced battle system than what you might be used to in other games. It's supposed to be like that. It's just it has been streamlined and sped up a little bit from previous Trails games.
well, once I get bored of Dying Light, I will definitely play it some more because I'm liking what I played of it. I like the characters. I like although there are weird moments where like the main character is not voiced, but the other characters in the scene are, and I'm like,
Yes,
that's weird.
Yes.
That's actually a
it's
point
in the
of
Japanese
contention.
version.
Exceed actually tried to fix that, and Falcom it's hard coded into the game, so Falcom couldn't fix it.
Yes.
From I think I recall reading, the second one they actually got in early enough that they are fixing that.
It's weird.
It's
That's what I've heard,
strange.
too.
Like it's just very like, this is what I think of that. Okay, what else do you think of that?
Ellipses.
Um, I love the sound effect JRPGs make when text is going back.
That is not what it sounds like.
Not in Trails of Cold Steel, but in some games.
Wait, do we want to do the Okami?
No, I want to do the King of All Cosmos.
That's just your natural singing voice, Steven.
No, that's my natural talking voice.
Ba, 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 dum, bum.
I didn't bring this up before the show, but considering Final Fantasy IX came out again, I think I'm going to require us to talk about it right now.
You know, that game
Well,
is
you
just
brought it up a
really
little
over.
bit.
Fair enough.
I don't like Vivi. I'm kidding.
What? No, off the show.
You can't kick me off my own show.
Actually,
No,
well,
she
no,
can't.
wait.
No, she can't.
I can't. I could before because I started the call originally, but damn it.
Uh,
Damn it.
You can't
No.
fire me. I'm the firer.
Steven, tell me about Final Fantasy IX on mobile. How good is it?
I mean, well, so it's out in English as well. They announced like in the beginning of January that FF9 was coming to Steam finally, coming out on mobile. So it was getting the 7 and 8 treatment. Unlike 7 and 8, 9 had no extant PC port from the 90s that was terrible to base it off of. So it's I can't remember what the name of the studio is, but they pop up in the credits. But they had an external studio port it, I think from Thailand or something.
Island.
Can't remember, but Street Fighter, nice.
Thank you.
But so they were like, yeah, it's coming out early 2016, and then they were like, also it's out tomorrow on mobile. And then it came out on mobile. It's not out on Steam yet, and so I bought the Japanese version and pleasantly found out that it actually offers every language version, so I can play English if it so strikes me, but I'm currently enjoying feeling like I have a superpower playing it in Japanese. It's a great port. So the backgrounds, they up-resed all the 3D stuff and retextured it, so the world map looks nice. Battles look great. They run at a great frame rate. The character models look phenomenal.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
They're roughly the same number of polygons, but those polygons aren't warping all over the place like old PS1 games did. The texturing on them is incredible. The faces are still clear, and you look at Steiner's belts, and they all have actual leather textures and buckles on them. Vivi's hat, you can see every little stitch in it, but it's also sort of watercolory, so it's almost a Legend of Mana style, fairy tale-esque thing. It looks gorgeous. The HD font is awesome. I looked at the English one briefly, but then switched to Japanese, which is... I tried to play FF9, the Japanese version, the original PS1 release, a while back, and the resolution made it really hard for a newbie like me to read all of the kanji, because they just look like blocks. So the font is great looking. They added the spate of features they add. They added the character booster where you can cap. They added, all of the cheat mode stuff like max HP and trance. They also, I can't comment yet because I haven't gotten too deep into the game, but it seems like they have fixed the lag between input and command that happens. Obviously the queue is still there, but it's much more rare for you to select attack and have to wait 30 seconds for your character to attack. There's the turbo button, which FF7 and 8 had. That works great for grinding, particularly because they also added an auto battle option. So if you're grinding for AP, I was on the train and I was talking to someone, so I was just running in a circle with turbo on auto battling and learning all my abilities. Or you can just use the character booster that teaches you every ability, if you want to cheat.
That's how I'm going to do it.
But that option is there to make the game more playable because it's older. The touch controls work great. The menu interface and everything. They completely rebuilt the menu interface. It's not. I don't know if FF7 did this in mobile. I thought it had digital buttons or virtual buttons, but this one has straight up. The battle command menu has become a tappable menu. All of your options and stuff are specific buttons on the screen. So it feels really good. The control wise, you can either move with the virtual analog stick or you can just tap on the screen, and they've added a system where he'll actually run to wherever you tap. So that's all specific to the mobile version. But yeah, it's a great port. Everything looks good. This was not half done. It's still the original game, so it's not going to light the visual world aflame, for my favorite metaphor, but it's my favorite Final Fantasy, and it looks better than it ever has, and it's easier to play than it has ever been. Playing it in Japanese is fun because I'm comparing how they translated stuff. Like there's a term in Japanese, olsan, which is kind of like, hey, old guy or whatever.
Old man.
And that's actually that's what they call Steiner. They call him Osan, and so like old man. So it's really interesting how in English they translated that to rusty, because that's
Rusty,
in my opinion, that's such a good translation because it captures the same sort of tone but sounds way more like English Zidane.
It makes sense because he's wearing armors and he's kind of crusty and stubborn.
The connotation of the Japanese original is that it's like, like, hey, washed up old dude.
Yeah.
It's, if you like FF9 or if you like FF9 and wish it was faster, those are all things here. I'm definitely going to pick up the Steam version because it's my favorite Final Fantasy, and double dipping is the thing I'm okay with doing on that. It has it has cloud saving. That actually seems like it's cross-platform cloud saving, which is amazing. So if the possibility of me playing on my phone and then jumping on Steam is there, I can't confirm that, but based on what I read, it seemed like that was going to be the case. There's like 8,000 save slots, so if you want 9,000 save games, you have that. Also, they added a cutscene skip, which makes getting Ragnarok 2 possible without cheating. Whenever there's a cinematic sequence, you can just hit start, or in the handheld one, it's you tap the screen, but you can skip cutscenes and everything. So it's really a very thoughtful port tailored specifically to that game. And it's Final Fantasy IX. It has one of the best intros in the PlayStation series. It's, if you like FF9, you should be getting it, and you should also be getting it because I like FF9. I want more FF9 related things. So you better.
Well, if I could make a small request, of course, I'm sure there are many people that work at Square Enix that are listening to this right now. For the love of God, can we get these new versions of Final Fantasy 7 and 8 on the Vita? Because my God, I would buy that in such a heart. If you can get it working on a mobile phone, for God's sake, like. How awesome would that be to have all those speed up options and the ability to turn off random encounters? Not this random encounter. How awesome would it be to turn?
You have that on Vita.
Can never turn off this random encounter.
But I thought that the Vita version was the PlayStation 1 version.
Well, it is. I meant you can turn off this random encounter on Vita because you can listen immediately.
Oh, that's sad. But you get what I mean? Like, there's so many different. I love reading articles and stuff. It's like, which is the best version of Final Fantasy VI to play? And apparently, it's the one that's on Game Boy Advance that's really hard to get a hold of now. It's like they've remade these games so many different times and on so many different platforms. I think we talked about this before on the show. It's hard to find the one that you want, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I would like to be able to play those. I probably wouldn't play them, but I'd like having the option.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, with the PlayStation 1 version already on the Vita, I guess there's no incentive for them to do it, but man, that would be cool.
Sales, I guess.
Well,
yeah, they could stand to make money because
it would just be so cool.
They like money.
Yes.
They like money? Really? Are we sure?
In theory, they like money.
Are we sure?
But they still haven't announced 12 HD, which would make them a lot of money because I would buy it twice.
Not gonna happen, Caitlin.
It is so gonna happen.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised it hasn't happened. I'm honestly surprised it hasn't happened.
Well, they already announced FF9 stuff this year, and 12 and 9 are the ones they forget exist most often. So,
what's the 9 stuff this year besides the mobile version?
Just this, but that's more than they've announced for 9 in like the last 10 years.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Zidane is not in Final Fantasy Explorers. There's 3 characters from Final Fantasy 7, 2 from
What's up with that?
And none from 9.
That's like the only mainline Final Fantasy that is not in Explorers, right?
You can turn into Vaughn and not Zidane.
And he's not even the main character.
No.
He's Vashban Rotzenberg of Dalmasca.
A game that lets you use your limit break and transform into an omni-slashing cloud. I don't understand why I can't transform into a bushy-tailed rat monster man.
Don't listen to Andor's lies.
All right, what else do we have to talk about, or is it time to shift over to news?
I
I haven't
think
talked about
Zucker.
Digimon yet.
Digimon, digital monsters, Digimon.
It's
Is
probably
that the?
that song.
Oh my God! I have forgotten that song.
Yep, there it is. There it
Because you
is. Like,
forget that. Oh,
That song is amazing.
um,
yeah.
is
I
this
didn't really watch Digimon,
is
so
this the game, Tucker, that we talked about on our editors boards a little bit? That was just Boobs, the video game.
All right, that is
Well,
a gross over exaggeration.
so it is that is a thing that we did talk about the character design of a couple of the characters, but
Okay, okay.
that's definitely not the majority of the game. Um,
Character designer is Devil Survivor.
Okay.
okay.
I just saw a lot of cleavage and I was like, this is Digimon? Like
There's a
Yeah,
lot of cleavage.
yeah. So
this would be like if Misty came out with double D's at some point. Like I would be from Pokemon. I would be like, Misty? Like that didn't actually happen,
yeah,
did it? Like I would be really sad right now if I mentioned something that has actually happened.
let's hope not.
Okay.
James
do
did
any characters have boobs in Pokemon? Really? I don't. I don't remember a
just
lot of characters that have boobs.
Jigglypuff?
Jigglypuff had boobs.
Jigglypuff is a boob.
I think Jigglypuff is. All right, sorry, Tucker.
One boob.
Well, yeah. You're gonna have at least one, I guess. I mean, it's a boob that sleeps. She is a boob that sleeps. Sorry.
Moving on.
And thank you.
yes, please.
With respect to the guy who killed me off the side of the stage and smashed before I could counter him, Jigglypuff is far more than just one boob.
Okay.
I don't even know where. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sorry.
No, don't
You,
apologize. They
you
should be
brought this
thanking
on
us.
yourself. Yeah. So Digimon Cyber Sleuth. Apparently, it's the fifth game, I guess, in a series. Digimon story. I think it's the first one to come over here to the States. Um, and yeah, I think that definitely, because of the fact that it was a cartoon and things like that, I certainly think of Digimon as a kid's thing, but it does end up having. I don't want to call it mature themes, just like the cartoon did. You know, the cartoon often the arc of the season was, hey, there's this guy who wants to destroy both the human world and the Digimon world, and uh, the kids end up back with their parents at some point, and the parents have to watch their kids go off to save the world or die. And so uh, the game has a similar tone to the story when all is said and done. And yeah, there are a couple character designs that are a little odd to me. The girls, um, you play as a detective. You can be either a boy or a girl, and their designs are both okay. But either way, you after the game starts up, you work at a detective agency for a lady who her outfit consists of like short shorts and a white like business like men's button down business shirt, except in her case the button down is like the second one from the bottom. Uh, the rest of her buttons are all open. That's just the way she is. And I was like, I'm not. This is really weird. But at the same time, like the game makes it clear over and over again that like she's really good at her job. She's respected as a detective. Um, the cops consult with her on cybercrime cases all the time, even before the start of the game. And so it left me very conflicted about the character designs because personality wise, you have her and then another girl in the game who are both end up being really strong, respectable characters from a personality perspective, but the visuals don't really seem to match up with
They're
the way
drawn for the male gaze.
I guess so.
Yes.
But I mean, I think we're maybe putting more on that,
Yeah, that
more than really there is in the game. That's mostly it's about solving cases, running around, digivolving your team into the most super powered Digimon in the universe, and trying to fill up the your Digimon equivalent of the Pokédex.
And it's made by the developers of the Wild Arms series, Mediavision. Because I played the Japanese version and talked about it on the show a couple of months ago. And I having watched the show a lot, and I'm a big fan of the show, or at least the first 3 seasons of it. It's a different kind of experience because it's like the show in terms of how it is thematically a little deeper than it seems at first appearance versus Pokemon, which, not to make fun of Pokemon, but the TV show at first was go get Pokemons.
But is it as deep as Yu-Gi-Oh?
Listen, don't activate my trap card, okay? I'm not gonna sit here and tease Yu-Gi-Oh because Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged is one of the funniest things I've ever seen on the internet.
Yeah, but Yu-Gi-Oh always felt like they were just making up rules, and that really started to annoy me when I was watching that as a kid.
Well, that was what they were doing. It was like, you're going to lose, except for there's a rule I didn't mention.
Nah, ha, ha, ha.
But yeah, so I'm interested what you think of like the combat and the progression in the game, Tucker, because what I found really interesting is that it's not just like my vision of the old Digimon games was like, here's a half-assed Monster Rancher, which was a half-assed Pokemon. This one is very much, we live in a post-Persona 3 and 4 world, so this one is very much in a, like, you're exploring a seemingly authentic part of Japan. Nakano Broadway is a real place. I've been there. And like in terms of the visuals of like the areas in the game, they're very like, this is what it's like to walk around in some parts of Japan. Obviously, there's no digital world, and the game takes a few liberties, but the general aesthetic is very authentic. And so the detective thing, I was actually surprised by like the amount of detectiving you do. It turns into, hey, something weird is happening. We better go find out that there's some Digimon screwing things up. So in that regard, I think structurally it's a little predictable, but I also think combat-wise and like as an RPG, it's very fun and very quick.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways that it did kind of surprise me. The combat aspect of it, you have sort of a 2-tiered rock, paper, scissors, elemental advantage that, keeps you thinking like, all right, I got to have a balanced team in a couple of different ways. Plus, I always want to have some people in there who are basically just there to gain levels so that I can digivolve them into somebody cooler. And yeah, one of the things that you can do is you have a farm where Digimon who aren't on your active team can hang out and they gain some experience while they're there. And you can have them search for cases, and they'll come back. It takes about an hour real time. Sorry, when I say that, I mean like an hour playing the game for them to finish investigating for cases, and they'll come back and say, hey, there's this bad hacker he's got some Digimon and he's treating them like jerks, and you should go like tell him not to do that anymore. And
which
you go out
invariably.
Yeah. So you go out and you find that guy, and they all have different like dialogue. It's not just the same canned response every time. The game said when you did the very first one, there's 30 of these guys, and I'm curious to see, but I probably won't find out if that actually is the number of them that you can go up against. They also will find cases like this. You get a lot of these with the investigating from the farm. Hey, I lost my special item. And you go to a certain area and there's a Digimon waiting there who says, hey, can you help me find my special item? I dropped it somewhere on this floor.
Those missions, yeah.
And sometimes you have to wander like all through a giant, level. Other times it's like 10 feet away.
And then he's just dumb.
Yes. Then you have like the real quests that like the story kind of missions and the missions that pop up, as the game progresses, that are, I think, they'll ask you. We talked about this. I streamed this last week. So if you're listening to this podcast within 2 weeks of Valentine's Day, that stream will still be up on our Twitch channel. But there are also cases where they'll give you like a keyword that you're supposed to go around and ask people about, and we talked about on the stream, maybe that system is not as deep as it maybe could have been, but you do have to like kind of go around and ask people, find the right person to ask about this thing that you're trying to find out about. Like a case that we took on when I was on the stream was there's a hacker who got a bunch of police investigation information, so things about cases that the cops were looking into, and he's threatening to release it to the public. And the fact that they got hacked would be embarrassing to them, not necessarily the details of the cases. So you're trying to help figure out, who this guy is. And of course, you could ask like everybody in the game world, but it gives you an indication with this keyword of like who you really should ask.
Mm.
And the resolution of that case did not turn out to be what I expected it to be, both in terms of who the culprit was and also the fact that you're not actually the one to resolve the case. You find a clue along the way and you talk to this cop buddy of yours and he's the one who solves the case.
Takes all the credit, I'm sure.
Well, he's a good guy, but you're kind of trying to solve the case sneakily, because he's you have that stereotypical oh well, it will hurt my honor if someone other than a police person resolves this case.
You better get over it.
Yeah.
One of the things I found really compelling about that game was its Mega Man Battle Network influence, in that like your character has the ability to basically go into the digital world. So a lot of the story missions turn into like, you'll enter a hospital and you got to get into a room. So you enter like the hospital's network, and then you go through like a digital area, and then you come out in another device, and like so. Like Mega Man Battle Network, which Mega Man Battle Network, you didn't go into the network, Mega Man did, and you were Lan in the game world. But that creates, for at least what I thought was a lot of interesting like scenarios for getting around. I would say the only part of the game I found super tedious was the dungeon you return to multiple times.
Yeah. The Kowloon.
Yeah, it's a little. I think it shows its budget a little bit in that area.
Yeah, there are a lot of quests that take place in the 4 levels that I've got access to of Kowloon so far. I'm in chapter 15 of 20, and it looks like there'll be at least one more level. But boy, I've been back to Kowloon level 2 and 4 a lot of times. So, but still, like you said, the battles are kind of quick and fun, and there is a little bit of sadistic pleasure to be had in going back to some dungeon where everybody is the little tiny baby Digimon, and you're walking around with a werewolf with a jetpack. Everyone goes down in one punch. Maybe I'm wrong to find that amusing. But,
It sounds amusing to me.
Yeah. But there's also, I think there's been a few times later in the game also when you'll have like a buddy join you, and they'll have a Digimon who will be in the fight, who can't necessarily get knocked out no matter what happens. But they aren't necessarily, destroying the bad guys who you're fighting against. They're really there more for story reasons in the battle. And that's it's a mechanic that I think they make work well, because those guys tend to kind of be supporting you more, buffing you and things like that. And you're really the one who's there to deal all the damage. And then it works from a story perspective to have them in that role. But I've really liked it. It's going to get a good review from me when I do finish it up here pretty soon, unless something terrible happens at the end of the game and it all gets broken.
Like the ending of Final Fantasy.
Turns out the Reapers, the only way they can be beaten is with 3 different colors.
Oh, I was going to say it was the ending of Final Fantasy IX when the crystal shows up for no good reason.
even though they've hinted at it earlier in the game, and the ending is amazing.
Not really. No. No. No.
And Tucker, this is often my question with games that I'm not very familiar with. Since for someone like me I've watched a few episodes of Digimon, but I'm not super familiar with the series. Is this a good entry point? Would I be kind of confused about what the heck is going on? Or do they introduce all the concepts well enough that you can get into it?
It
I
is
think
its
you'd
own
be just
thing.
fine. Yeah. The thing that I get out of having watched the cartoon is like, oh, sweet, it's Agumon. I know that guy.
Yeah, it's and like they like none of the Digimon are their personalities from the show. So
Okay.
they're essentially Pokemon, or if you prefer, demons from Shin Megami Tensei. But no, it's its own standalone experience. It's not. It is essentially just here are the concepts from the TV show, and not even wholesale because the way the digital world works is different in this game than it was in the TV show. So it's sort of they have recurring themes like your Final Fantasies that are just juxtaposed into a new story.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you'd be you'd have a good time.
Awesome.
It's a fun turn-based JRPG that's not half-assed.
Yeah. The one thing that's funny to me, you were talking earlier, Rob, about I don't even remember which game it was now, about an auto battle system. There is an auto battle system in this, and even if the people that you're up against are the wimpiest of wimps, if you turn on auto battle, your team will throw the strongest attacks they have at them, just nonstop. Here is the biggest thing I can do.
Listen, Hand of Fate has to be used to kill Koromon, okay?
Yes. But the good thing is every time and here's another thing that's kind of fun about it. You know that they talk about the ding of leveling up, right? Because you're constant. Every time you digivolve somebody, you can digivolve them to someone stronger or actually to someone weaker if you want to go back down the chain to help raise some of your stats more. Every time you do that, you get set back to level 1. And so with, as long as you have, a few people in your party who aren't like level 60 because they're the highest, evolution there is, you're constantly leveling up somebody in your party. Like every battle, somebody's leveling up.
Yeah, the progression in the evolution system is very in-depth. Like, I like the idea. It's like, well, I could go back and level up and gain higher stats, so then I could branch down a different evolutionary path. It's not like Pokemon where you evolve and you have evolved. That's it.
Done.
At least in Red and Blue. It's been. I can't comment on the later ones.
No, it's the same way, but in later ones, except for the mega evolutions, which is only for the duration of the battle anyway. But every time you level up, your HP and SP, mana, whatever, are refilled. So you don't necessarily have to worry about, I can't use my strong attacks because I'm going to need that SP later on. No, I'm going to level up probably at the end of the next battle. So, go right ahead. Use those strong attacks.
Decimate the enemy.
Indeed.
Hear the lamentations of the one.
lamentations.
Yeah. Yeah, Tucker and I were showing our age. Oh, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So
Back in my day, I played Chrono Trigger, not this fancy snow game.
if I have to ask because when the last episode came out and you guys talked about Paper Jam, I was playing it and I didn't want to get sort of influenced. Is there like a very short version of were people fond of it or not?
I have not played as long as you have. I have about 10 hours on it. I really like it a lot. I skipped Dream Team. I heard it was a little too text heavy. So far, I'm having a blast with Paper Jam. Obviously, the story is dumb and the toad gathering is obnoxious. But I find the dungeons to be a lot of fun and the combat to be very fun. What's interesting to me, and I don't know if we talked about this in any real detail, it is a lot harder, the boss battles, than I ever recall the series being. They're like, when you fight, the first time you fight Bowser's kids, you fight Wendy and I think Roy.
Sounds right.
And I died in that fight like 4 times and I had not died yet. Well, no, I died one other time in the game, but I was like, it is legitimately difficult to block these attacks.
Yeah.
And and I like a lot how Paper Mario's mechanics work differently from Mario and Luigi, even though the game screws you in not letting you get Paper Luigi.
Yeah.
I could
Luigi
see
gets no respect in that game at all.
that actually. Okay, so that's what I want to talk about. If you'll humor me here,
Mhm.
that my biggest problem with Nintendo's characterization of Luigi is that in every game Luigi is displayed as being just as competent as Mario. He's on every adventure with Mario. He hits just as hard as Mario. He has his own game where he rescues Mario multiple times. And yet they're all like especially in Paper Jam, they're not just like, oh, Luigi's scared. They're like outright mean to him. They're like,
Oh
oh
yeah.
God, Luigi's here. Well, we better go get Mario or he'll screw something else up. And it's like, asshole, do you remember when I gave Mario a 1-up mushroom and saved his life? Do you remember when I was in the cave alone and jumped on all the Koopalings? Like, this seems like a very silly thing to get up in arms about, but I cannot stand how Nintendo continues to Flanderize Luigi into this, like, impotent man boy who is continuously demonstrating his competence.
They even make a reference at one point to the year of Luigi, and yet in every other possible moment, they're like, "Oh, Luigi, you're the worst.
You're such the worst," and it's like.
We need presidential candidates to talk about how Luigi's life matters. Is that what you're telling me right now?
Oh my god.
We need to have some kind of rally for Luigi right now because he's just not. There's too many microaggressions against Luigi.
I am gonna not get into that conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I really, the one thing I will say about you said like the Paper Mario mechanics being different. I really liked that as well. The way that they differentiated him from Mario and Luigi with, Paper Mario is like a stack of Paper Marios. And when he goes to attack, that comes into play. If you do a jump attack, every one of the stack of Marios jumps on the enemy one by one. If you do a hammer attack, he splits up and attacks every enemy at once. And then when he gets hit, the other Mario's in the stack go away rather than his HP going away, and you can always refill that stack with your turn. Or I found an item that gave him a new Mario in the stack every single turn, and just kept that on him for the rest of the game. And that, I think that definitely that saved my life on a number of occasions when I just plain couldn't dodge some attacks, like you were saying in some of those boss fights. Paper Mario survived because he had a stag of 8 guys. And I've every so often as you level up, it's like every 5, 6, 7 levels, you get to pick a new perk, and rarely have I had such a difficult time picking perks as I have in that game. As I got to the later ones, going, this might be my last perk, and there's like 3 awesome choices here.
Yeah, there's. The mechanics for like customizing the party and such are, I always underestimate the how well they do it in the Mario RPGs, and then I play it, I'm like, oh wow, I have more going on here than I thought.
Yep.
And I like I like the notion of.
I think you both cut each other off.
I like the notion of. Like, oh, I'm going to build Mario up to be this sort of HP tank, and I'm going to build Luigi up to hit people so hard they burst. And, Paper Mario is going to turn people into a kite and punch it really hard. So, it's a fun dynamic.
Yep. I would still really, really, really love to see, like, Paper Mario 1000-Year Door 2 or something along those lines, because I really loved that game. But... and I had issues with Paper Jam. Like you said, the difficulty of some of those, that difficulty spike was really annoying sometimes, and having to keep track of like 3 different people in terms of who's going to dodge, and that kind of, like, it all got to be a little annoying sometimes. But it's not a bad game. It's still a good game. I just, there were things about it that I think I would have liked better if they'd been a little different.
I can dig that. Well, you must be excited about the rumors that Nintendo might be writing a Paper Mario for the Wii U. I would love a straight-up Paper Mario sequel that's not Sticker Star. Although I think you liked Sticker Star, didn't you?
I did, and I actually mentioned that in my review that I think some of the stuff that I really enjoyed at the end of Sticker Star maybe made me be a little more positive about that game in my review of it than I should have been based on the whole experience. And so when I finished Paper Jam, I really hated the end of Paper Jam. So I gave it at least a day before I even sat down and started writing the review because I didn't want to, go the other way with it. That was the final battle in Paper Jam. After losing a bunch of times, I ended up giving up and just letting it. When you lose a fight like that, it will say, "Do you want to retry? Do you want to leave the area so you could go out and do some more grinding or something if you wanted to and buy some more items, or do you want to try again in easy mode?" And I just tried again in easy mode in the end after losing the final battle a bunch of times. I was like, I have better things to do with my time than fight this fight again.
The final battle, I know the final battle because I watched it on YouTube because I wanted to hear the music, and the final battle is quite a gauntlet.
Yeah, and and you go through a gauntlet that lasts a few hours of every boss battle you've already fought in the game, papercraft, and before you get to the final battle.
Everyone seems so upset about that, yet we all cheered when Mega Man did it.
Well, Mega Man, you also had the ability to just throw a metal disc at Metal Man and destroy him in one hit and be like, and moving on.
Well, not the original Mega Man, no. Mega Man X, yes.
No, you can kill Metal Man in one hit in Mega Man 2 with his own metal disc.
I would need to see proof of that.
Anyway,
issued a challenge.
Anyway, you're right. If they do make a Paper Jam or a new Paper Mario for the Wii U, and it's like, the ones from the past, I'd buy a Wii U for that. I don't have one yet. So, but we'll watch and see. I also saw a rumor a while back that they were releasing Thousand Year Door for the 3DS, but that never seems to.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to have gone any further than a rumor one day. I've never heard anything else about it. So, yeah. And we talked earlier about games that, things getting put off for. When I finish this, I'm finally going to go play the Witcher series. I have a new gaming PC, and I bought those. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But after I finish Digimon. It'll be a very different experience, I imagine.
I am eventually going to finish Witcher 3 because, boy, do I love that game.
That's a good game. I'm kind of waiting to play when the next expansion comes out. That is a good game.
I think we're all in agreement on that one.
We all like it. There seems to be some revisionist history going on with Witcher 3 right now. Not on our site, but some people saying, it's not really as good as people expect. It's kind of like how everybody's now complaining about Fallout 4 a little bit. Which, that's a whole other kettle of fish if we want to go into news right now.
They're only complaining about it now. I've heard people, moaning about that game when it came out.
Well, I moaned about it.
I was one of them.
Rob, you convinced me not to buy it.
I tried to play Fallout 4 a few times and just got bored every time. I'm just over Bethesda's style of RPG.
Steven, do me a favor. I'm going to send you a link right now. I need you to fast forward on this video to 27 minutes and 50 seconds, if you please. I think you will notice Metal Man going down in one hit. Thank you. Don't screw with me. Don't screw with me on my Mega Man 2 knowledge, dude.
Unfortunately, the thing where your messages aren't coming through is still happening.
Sure.
I'm not seeing it either.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
You still aren't coming through.
Oh darn! Too bad I have you on Steam there, big.
And that's only Mega Man 2, if that's the case.
Yes, Mega Man. That's what I said.
Not Mega Man 9.
Oh, for God's serious.
I'm not saying every game should have a boss gauntlet. That's not what I'm saying.
No, I was arguing that you can take out Metal Man in one disc in the original Mega Man 2, and you questioned it.
What time is this at?
2750. He goes in with Metal Man's ability and knocks him out in one hit.
Why do people who do speedruns talk the whole time?
I don't know why people talk during speedruns, but anywho.
I get that I'm being old saying that, but when I watch a playthrough, I don't want to hear some guy be like, yeah, so anyway, when this game first came out, Keiji Inafune was Batman. Little known fact.
What? Anywho, so what do we think about Bethesda?
Wow.
Bethesda basically upping
He
the
didn't
price.
kill him in one hit.
Yes, he did. Oh my God, are you
He
gonna tell me?
didn't.
Are you gonna tell me what reality is? He knocks out Metal
Yes,
Man in one
he
hit.
killed him. He killed him very quickly. That is true.
Oh, dude, seriously, Steven,
He
seriously.
shot him like 5 times.
He threw 5 discs out. The first one hit him, and that was it. Oh my God, do I need to refer to a wiki right now? Okay, somebody talk about Fallout
This is
4.
awesome.
Somebody talk about upping the Fallout 4 price of the season pass now, because apparently they're going to do a lot more Fallout 4, as we talked earlier in the show about games as a service.
Yeah, so you this goes back to something we were just saying about, I had decided, I'm going to hold off on buying Fallout 4, just having heard all your gripes about it, I was like, I don't want to pay like normal price for this game. But then I see this news this week that now they're saying, well, we're going to raise the price on the season pass. Everybody has really liked, let's say, a fair percentage of the DLC for like Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I do have to go ahead and buy the game now at regular price and get the season pass, or do I say, screw it, if you're going to treat me like this and raise the price, maybe I should just wait and get the Game of the Year edition, whatever they call it, when that comes out with all the DLC.
And that's my real rub here is that I don't like to pick on any company indiscriminately. But if I could use the F word on this show, I would say it to Bethesda, because this is 100%. Some guy in a suit said, all right, we're going to release a little extra content. That's fine. But if we tell people the price is going to go up, they're going to feel like they have to buy it now to save money. This is 100% to psychologically make people buy something now without knowing what's going to be in it. And then at that point, they're like, well, you already bought it, so enjoy your free horse armor. Not that they're going to go that far, because they've been, pretty good with DLC, the Dishonored stuff. So, like, it's not like, you're guaranteed to get something bad. But I don't think this is very, like, WB buyer beware type thing. Like, I don't have an issue with buying a season pass. I get that people don't like buying them because you don't know what content you're going to get. That, I don't personally care, but obviously that's personal taste there. But
it's a question of trust.
Yeah,
How much do you feel like you can trust this particular developer to give you content that's going to be worth more than the amount that you gave them?
Yes, exactly. And in this case, the contentious point in my mind is buy it now, otherwise it's going to go up in price.
Exactly.
Because we all know that these companies operate on they need to buy it now, not later. Like, a game is successful on its early sales, not later, at least in the AAA world. This is 100%. We are going to coerce people into buying the season pass now by raising the price later.
Now, do we?
Yeah, but
go ahead, Caitlin. Go ahead.
well, I mean, I get that, and I'm not trying to defend it, but the whole concept of a season pass sort of works on the similar idea that you're, buy this thing now, and even if they don't change the price, now you can buy a season pass when you pick up the game before we even know what the content is, and the idea is, well, buy it now so you don't spend more money buying it piecemeal later.
But you can buy the season pass later. That's the thing. You can buy the season pass at the same price later that you could early. So you can wait to buy the season pass until all the DLC is out, and then it's like, okay, I'm getting this discount. I have to. But what they're doing now is they're saying, if you wait, even if it's good, you're going to pay more money. Yeah. So right now they're trying to up the value proposition of buying something that you don't know what it is by saying later you're not going to be able to get this good of a deal.
Yeah, I'm
later on a season. Normally with a season pass, even if you buy it later, you can still get that deal.
No, I'm not trying to equate them. I'm just saying that at a certain level, there's a similar mentality behind them. It's just this is a shittier practice. So,
well, what I mean by that, like the reason I take issue with that statement is that, again, the season pass in a normal scenario, like take Battlefront, $50 season pass. I can buy it now, or I can wait until all the DLC is out, and it's like, oh, if this is what I want, there's no risk. I'll buy the season pass because it's cheaper. I have not taken any risk that way. What they're doing here is they're saying, yeah, you could wait until later, but even if you do that, you're going to pay more money. So
I guess
they're trying
kind
to
of like
coerce you into doing it.
but they do the same.
Go ahead.
They do the same thing when they are trying to sell it to you when the game comes out or before the game comes out when you don't know what it is.
Yeah, but you don't have to buy it then because the price isn't going to go up later.
Yeah, I think what this is bringing to mind for me is the argument that a lot of people are having on the internet in the last couple of years about should you pre-order games at all?
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like what they're doing in this case is saying you can pre-order this game now for this amount of money, or if you wait, you can pre-order it for more money.
Yeah,
So you're getting the same thing.
it's kind of the same reason why if we take Fallout 4 and we kind of compare it to some of the other things that have gone on this year, Dying Light, they upped the base game actually went back up because they were doing their enhanced edition, which was going to come with the following expansion pack. There was some confusion over that when they first started to do it. The absolute train wreck of Square Enix trying to explain the new Hitman game, and I'm on board. I want to play this game, but every time they come out and explain it, I'm like, can you guys seriously sit down, have a cup of coffee, and come up with a single message about this game because you're confusing people and you're creating problems. I actually like what they're doing with this game, but it's confusing to people. I agree with Steven in that I was not going to buy Fallout 4. I'm actually a test case for this. I was not going to buy the Fallout 4 Season Pass. Then when I heard that the Season Pass was going up in price, I was like, well, I better buy it now because I might want to... Hey, wait a minute. That's exactly what you guys want me to do. I wasn't actually going to buy this, but now you're making me feel like it's a value proposition, even though I don't know if I'm even going to be interested in anything.
What they're doing is they're adding risk to waiting.
Yes.
There's no risk in waiting normally with a season pass. The fact of the matter is, yes, they want you to buy it early, but they don't penalize you for not doing that. Now they are penalizing you for waiting. That is the point, Caitlin, is that if you wait, you get more money.
Okay. Again, like I said, I'm not trying to equate them. I'm not saying it's the same thing. I'm just saying that there is a similar mentality in I should buy a season pass now because if I wait and buy it piecemeal later, it will end up costing me more money.
Okay, well, I never get that, but I understand.
Is never convinced me because I'm usually okay. I have never found a situation where I have all this DLC and I find that it was worth it for me to buy a season pass. I might like to buy a few things, like the substantial editions, but that usually ends up being cheaper for me in the long run than buying a season pass. So it never has been a selling point for me.
And we also saw this earlier in the year with the Deus Ex. What's the new one called? Human Revolution. Mankind Divided. Yeah, with the new Deus Ex, when they tried to do the augment your pre-order to incentivize more people to pre-order the game so that then you would unlock new things. It's that risk of, eventually you have to wonder, are they going to do if you pre-order the game, you can get it for $50, but if you wait till release date, you get it for $60. How far away are we from that kind of future? Where they're like, somebody runs the numbers, somebody wearing a suit goes, look how many more pre-orders we get if we lower the price by $5 or $10. That's really weird. I don't know. I feel like I like Bethesda. I have a buddy who works at Bethesda. I like Bethesda, but this is kind of one of those, I don't know. First off, the 3 announced pieces of DLC did not interest me at all. I mean, make of that what you will, but I'm not really, I didn't really like Fallout 4 to begin with. But now the idea of you're going to up the season pass and maybe I want to pick it up now because maybe I'm going to like what you're doing. I don't know. This doesn't feel thought out the way that Square Enix didn't seem to have it thought out with Deus Ex and with the new Hitman. This doesn't, maybe it is nefariously thought out, but it does not feel thought out. And until you guys have a firm idea of what's going on, like the new Hitman, they weren't even sure when the maps were going to come out. And then 2 months before release date, they're talking about oh yeah, we've changed our plans again. I'm like, why don't you guys figure out your plans and then get back to me? Maybe? I don't know. Whole thing skeeves me out a little bit.
Yeah, and I think in the end, I am probably just going to wait and get the the later edition with all the stuff. And
yeah.
Not even worry about it.
If
No.
they told me, hey, we're gonna do 2 story-based like I bought the season pass for BioShock Infinite, and they were very clear, like, hey, this is what we're doing. And those episodes were hit and miss. Like I liked one, I didn't like the other one so much. Like it was, I knew I was making that decision. I bought the season pass because I was interested, and you did get it on the cheap for that. So I guess I did kind of do what they want you to do, and I had a mixed bag reaction to it. Dishonored was very honest about what they were doing with that. Hey, you're going to get these 2 episodes and this kind of challenge mode if you buy our season pass, but otherwise, here's everything for the same price. I don't know. I want games as a platform. I think maybe that's a cool idea, but don't hold a gun to my head to make me buy stuff on the cheap. I don't like that. I don't like a high pressure situation when it comes to buying a video game. Fallout,
Agreed.
Well,
also Fallout 4 wasn't all that great, so that's the other. That's, I yee. Don't know what else
we
to
don't
say.
have to get into that can of worms.
No, we
again,
don't.
Rob.
But there was something else in news I wanted to talk about, and I'm completely blanking right now. I'm tired, and we've been podcasting for a while.
The VLR room.
Yes! Oh my God!
Yeah.
Not tired anymore.
Okay, so they're doing one of those escape rooms that my wife did in Philadelphia. They're doing one of those escape rooms. It's kind of like a game where you go in with a group of people and you got to figure out how to get out. They're going to model one after Virtue's Last Reward, the Zero Escape games in LA, and I think we all need to do this, but I also think it might involve us killing each other. So I think that'll make it even more fun.
Look, Rob, if it makes you feel any better, I would never betray you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I trust you about as much as I can throw.
If it was Tucker and Caitlin versus you and me, I wouldn't betray anybody. Although, if my bracelet was going to blow me up, the problem is that if everybody cooperates in VLR, everybody can survive. Well, minus that one part that makes it impossible. But
Oh, Dio, you jackass. I would I think this is a great idea. I think it's one of those great promotional things. I hope it's up and running for E3 because that would be an absolute blast. Apparently, there's going to be some Zero Time Dilemma reveals at GDC, and I am super excited to hear more. I am looking forward to it.
I think wasn't it supposed to start opening in April?
Oh, I want to do this.
how crazy is it that it's happening in the U.S.?
Yeah, actually, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Proof to you right there of how much more popular that series is in the U.S.
Yeah, I am down. I am definitely down with doing that.
Yes, it's opening April 15th.
Okay, we're doing it.
It
We're,
will
we're
most
doing it.
assuredly be there.
We're doing it. In slightly sad news, I say slightly sad, I mean actual sad news. Really sad to see the closing down of game trailers. I actually remember the first time I found the website Game Trailers. It was when the Metal Gear Solid 3 first trailer came out, and my buddy and I were trying to watch it, and we were like, hey, what's this thing called Game Trailers? I feel like that was a really good institution for such a long time in video gaming, and I really like the guys and gals that worked there, and it's just, man, it sucks. It really, really sucks. Maybe I'm the only one on site that feels that way, but it's a downer. I really liked their reviews. I liked their written reviews. I like their video game reviews. I like their coverage. Their retrospective series were amazing. Like the Resident Evil one. That's like my go-to. Like putting on one of their retrospective things when I'm grading, just as like background noise. I would do that all the time, and it feels like a real. It's kind of the same way I felt when EGM closed. It's like, oh man, really? Like one of my go-to things for video game news is now kind of closed up, and that blows.
Indeed.
Yes.
Yeah,
And I don't think any of us like to hear that, a site devoted to games has had to shut down
right.
for whatever reason. Just because we all love what we do and we love this community, and Game Trailers is a big part of that community for a lot of people.
Yep.
Yep.
It feels like there are less and less places that I go to for my game news now. I don't want to get nasty. I don't want to call things out, but I think a lot of gaming sites are now the quote big name gaming sites. There's a lot more like this is what happened on the latest episode of Agent Carter, or like, here's what's going on in TV this week. It's like, it's video games and TV, or video games and movies, and like,
Problem is, I think there's a lot of overlap in the
yeah,
audiences, and it's
yeah,
very expensive to run a website like that without having a bunch of stupid pandery crap. So that's one of the few ways they can compromise. And not that I necessarily like that, but I am clearly in the minority, because it's like when Kotaku started talking about like Japan culture, or like like tangentially related things, and everybody was like, "Oh, is this a video game site or what?" Like, I don't know that I'm ever so bent on reading about one particular thing that it bothers me, but I definitely agree that you see that trend of trying to expand the limits of what constitutes coverage. Like when it's like, today Kanye West said he was going to play Candy Crush. Ha, Candy Crush.
yeah,
And it's just like an article that embeds his tweet.
yeah.
Well, I think
Go ahead, Tucker.
we always talk about, amongst ourselves, the fact that as a volunteer site, even though we got a pretty big staff at this point, we still have to be pretty careful in terms of what we do and don't choose to cover. There's some stuff out there that we like, that we think would be of interest to our audience, that we choose not to cover because it opens up a can of worms of, well, why don't you cover other things that are similar to this? Because we just have to say, like, there's a limit to how much stuff we can do. And I feel like those sites are, even though they are sites where people get paid to do things, I think, they're still running some of that same risk of, if they expand too much, where's the end of how much they can manage to still cover and do a good job of it.
Well, look at IGN. IGN covers like everything now, so it's like their site is a mess.
Yeah,
It's like their sidebar is like 400 different categories.
Yeah, I don't want to be all holier than thou, but I've thought before about whether or not I would want to write and make money as a video game writer, as like a reviewer, and the answer for me is very clearly no. I mean, I am a teacher. That is my passion. That's what gets me up every morning, and even when I play like well, yes, definitely coffee. But
that's what keeps him up.
No, free faculty coffee is like a game changer. Like that will keep me at this school forever. If they take that away, I'm out. But it's like when I play a bad game, or when I have a couple games that I'm not really enjoying very much, like I start to lose interest in video games. So like I would never want to be paid for my work, as weird as that may sound. And I think it allows us as a volunteer website to stay focused on the things that we want to stay focused on. If my livelihood, if my paycheck was coming from the number of hits that we get, you're damn right I would probably put a review of The Witch opening February 19th on the front of my website. I get that. I totally understand that. I just really wish that there was a way for those sites to still be focused. Maybe they don't want to be just focused on video games. Maybe they're totally okay with going in that direction. But when I start seeing TV and movie reviews on GameSpot, I start feeling a little weird. I'm like,
well, it's you look at everybody. This is the example everybody talks about of like, well, the History Channel or TLC or whatever, like, are so far away from what they started out as.
Yeah.
And
their names don't really accurately reflect their content anymore.
Aliens.
And you can say, yes, you can say all along the way that they were making valid business decisions. And so as a business, a thing that's trying to make money, it's tough to really criticize that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as a fan of the thing that they were originally doing, you can still be sad and say, I wish that they hadn't made that decision.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. I'll leave the names of the sites out, but there's one site in particular lately that like had a big exodus of some of its longtime staff and is now posting a lot more like sensational type of headlines and like attempting to include its personal opinion in stories a lot more, and like intentionally saying incendiary things because they know it'll get people reading the story.
We all know what site you're talking about.
I've got 3 in my head right now, so I'm not 100%.
And that to me is a real big shame as a site that's been around for a long time. to see that happen. And that's not necessarily completely related to what we've been talking about, but like when coverage change choices are made, or the way in which sites are going to cover things change, that's true. So let me revise my original statement of like I'm not so set on reading about one thing. I'm not so set about reading on one thing as long as what I'm reading is substantive and at least interesting. But when it's like, oh, this developer sucks balls anyway, let's go talk about how lame what you like is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I remember when G4 started. I think I was in 10th grade, and
I mean, when it was Tech TV?
well, so I jumped into it when it was G4. I didn't actually follow a lot of Tech TV, but when they did like, the action show that was Blister and the MMO show that was Portal, I remember how hokey it was, but there was also a genuineness to it that I found very endearing. Like I remember the show Cheat that was devoted to, figuring out how to get through the toughest video games. Like it was so endearing. Like there was something pure about that, and maybe this is just old white guy syndrome as I hit 31 this year, where I'm just like, back in my day we could enjoy things like this, and Obama ruined America. Like I blame Obama for G4 falling apart, but like I really,
Thanks,
I don't,
Obama.
thanks Obama,
Thanks,
but
Obama.
but I really I miss that sort of purity. I miss that like real passion for I don't need people to talk about video games in a highfalutin nature all the time. I think those are great discussions to have. I love reading, some of the intricacies of Undertale. I think that's really cool to read some of that stuff. But sometimes I just want to see people talking about games and talking about whether they're fun or not. Like sometimes I just want to turn my brain off and just enjoy it. And I don't know. I miss EGM. I miss, Game Informer's still
Yeah.
good. Kim, we love you. I
Yep.
miss. I miss EGM. I miss Game Pro. I miss as effed up as it was at times. I miss Game Fan and how delightfully crazy it was. I miss looking in the back of magazines and seeing like the anime section and wondering when the hell did Goku get blonde hair? I haven't seen that in Dragon Ball Z yet. Like I know some of our listeners might have just had like total nostalgia right now for what I'm saying, but I miss that era of mystery about video games. I miss that genuineness of video games, and it's a weird time right now for the industry. It's almost like when you hear the Giant Bomb guys talk about, what need is there for E3, and we were talking about some of our E3 plans already, and I said to Caitlin, it was weird to get the Deus Ex demo because I was like, you guys are just going to put this on GameSpot later on today. Like I didn't need to fly across the country to see this because I was going to get the exact same presentation. Or when they finally showed Bloodborne at the following, I can't remember if it was GDC or whatever, when they showed the exact same demo that Steven and I got at E3. Like, what is the point of going to E3? Well, the point is to get my hands on a controller and actually try out a game. And that's why I don't like sitting in a theater to watch a game being played at me. I want to play the game, and then I want to report to our readers and our listeners what I thought of the game. Like, to go back to XCOM 2, that was a weird demo last year where it was so structured and it was just a theater where they played the game at you. And I was like, I have questions. I want to see you guys like actually play this game. I want to see how it is instead of like this is the exact same theater demo over and over again. Like I kind of wanted to see some different things, and we saw that with Dragon Age Inquisition. So I don't know. It's this weirdness of like, what is the point if all of this stuff can be directly fed to potential buyers without any media coverage? Like there's 1.5 million videos on the Dying Light YouTube channel. Do you need me to tell you whether you're going to like the game or not? I think you can watch a couple of the videos and figure out whether or not you need to buy it. It's a weirdness.
Yep.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of the internet culture we live in. Part of that, I think, I know what you're talking about when you're talking about EGM, and part of that was because you couldn't see all those things
Right.
on YouTube. Then you relied on the monthly issue to tell you, what was at E3 and these previews and everything like that, because that was the main way we tended to get our news. And now it's all online, and it's like, I don't even really rely on a specific site so much as I rely on, like forums that just aggregate news articles from every which way to get my gaming news. And I don't feel like I'm missing anything compared to ye old days of EGM and whatnot.
I remember
But
yeah, I remember reading a copy of Game Informer at my buddy Brian's house, and it was the Game Informer where they did the reveal of Resident Evil 4, like when they did the big gameplay change. And I remember like I could tell the writer was struggling to get across just how different this was. Like he was basically typing in all caps, "You don't understand. This is completely different." And I'm struggling to tell you. Whereas now, like Caitlin's saying, there would just be a video to show you what it is. Sort of like the other news story I wanted to talk about briefly, the new Valkyria game. I took one look at that video and said, yeah, I'm probably not going to like this, but I hope other people do. Like, there was no explanation. The video popped up and I was like, okay, let's take a look at this demo. All right, that looks like Dynasty Warriors. Okay, I'm out. All right, moving on. I guess I'll play that remastered collection right now. Caitlin, can I get your opinion as a Valkyria lover? Did you watch the video for Azure Revolution?
yes, I didn't watch all of it because I got turned off.
Okay, I'm not the only one feeling that right
midway. I'm not gonna, I don't want to.
It might be awesome
before we actually see. It might be awesome, and we don't, I want to see the final product before I'm like, but I mean, I wasn't feeling the combat this as much as I would have if it were more of traditional Valkyria Chronicles style, but then again, it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be different. So
yeah, Steven pointed that out to me in the message boards. I love him for it, but he was like, "It's a spinoff," and I'm like, "I know, but
yeah, well."
It's a spin-off. I'd like to clarify what I said. I said it's a spin-off. Anyways, have fun playing Phantasy Star 5. Wait.
It could be really awesome. I hope it. Maybe it'll play.
Yeah,
amazing.
but they are taking a risk.
Yeah, it doesn't have the things that I liked about Valkyria Chronicles. Maybe that will be okay. Maybe it'll be its own thing, but I really liked Valkyria Chronicles for what it was, and this game, I think Caitlin's saying exactly what I'm not articulating very well, which is this is not what I want, but that does not mean that it will not be good. Does that make sense? Like,
yes.
Yeah. And sometimes that's good. Maybe sometimes things really surprise you, and that maybe this game comes out and I'm like, holy crap, this is awesome! Like, but that video just kind of it immediately turned me off, and it's one of those. Maybe if I play it, I'll really like it. So,
yeah,
I will look forward.
Well, it has a ways. It's like I think it's supposed to be the end of the year in Japan, and that could mean the end of fiscal year 2016. So we don't know necessarily when it's coming out in Japan, and then if we get it in English, I would hope, just because any Valkyria would be better than no Valkyria, even if it is a spinoff.
Yeah, it could be awesome. It could play really, really fun. I like the fact that they're asking for fan input, much the same way as the Final Fantasy 15 demo. And I think that's a really good thing, that could end up making that game really special. So I'm tired. Are you guys tired?
Yeah.
No, It's 1 o'clock here. But I do want to go play Ikineo on my TV.
I need to get you to bring me back some of the world famous Japanese scotch, as weird as that may sound, but the Japanese whiskey
the
that
Zaki one.
Yeah, the one that won like best whiskey in the world 2 years ago. I need you to bring me back a bottle of that. That's your mission.
Yeah, but according to Whiskey Snobs, it's only because whiskey elsewhere is terrible, which is the snobbiest thing I've ever heard.
I like whiskey, I like bourbon, and I like scotch. I don't care when it comes from. I do not turn my nose up to a blend. I enjoy it. So I had a little bit of it, and I really liked it at a friend's house. So, senpai, if you want to bring me back a bottle, that would be great.
Senpai, onegaishimasu.
Senpai.
Okay. So I think we're good, right? Everybody's happy? Everybody's good? Had a good podcast. Talked about a lot of things, a lot of controversial things. I'm ready to go to bed. I have to get up and teach tomorrow morning. I know, it's Saturday. Welcome to boarding school.
I was just going to say.
Yeah, welcome to living at a boarding school. It's a lot of fun.
I was going to say, are you in Japan?
No, the calendar is moving forward. It doesn't look like it's supposed to rain for at least 4 days, so we still have some time to train and get ready for whatever we need to fight. I guess I would be one of the teachers in Persona, wouldn't I? Huh.
That is exactly where I learned
So,
that.
so would I be like the teacher that knows about the midnight hour, or would I be just like the one that's asking random questions when you're trying to sleep? I really hope I'd be one of the helpful ones, but you know.
As long as you're not the one hitting on the students, it's all good.
Okay, that's good. That's good. As long as I'm not Gendo Ikari from Evangelion, just yelling at my child and trying to take over the universe or something like that.
Why is it always women?
Hmm?
That, hmm?
Hmm?
No, like I'm thinking of what's her face from Persona. Crap. Now I don't even remember which Persona it is. But there's the busty
Yep, in 4.
homeroom teacher
Oh
who's
yeah. Oh, it's because it's
you
the male,
know.
Caitlin. It's because it's the male fantasy for the.
I know.
I'm just being honest with you. Like that's what it is. Like.
Well, theoretically, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, yeah, but that's the trope they're
but
playing into. Anywho, Persona 5, believe. That's all I care about right now. I'm really tired. Okay, it's time to end the podcast. I have nothing. I'm literally brain dead right now. So it's time to end the podcast. Thank you everybody for listening to the show. Of course, we always love the iTunes reviews, especially the ones that call me either a douche or say I'm the worst human being ever. Yikes. I have pissed some people off. Please don't take it out on everybody else. Everybody else is so nice in the show. If you hate me, that's fine, but yikes.
No, in fact, if you'd like to, take it out on me, because I don't care what you have to say.
I feel like maybe my antics on that Fallout episode are we're still feeling the fallout from that. See what
The fallout. My philosophy is if someone's not mad at what you're doing, then you're not doing enough.
That's probably true. But
if you're being agreeable all of the time, then you're probably not saying too much that's terribly interesting.
Well, I love positive comments. I love positive criticism. Constructive criticism. If you have things for us to say and work on,
Constructive negative criticism is okay. You're a douche is useless, and I could care less if that's your comment.
Be a douche.
And it may seem cruel of me to say that over and over again and not friendly, and I'm an asshole, and I'm okay with that because that kind of criticism is crappy. If you have comments on what substantive qualitative comments on, hey, maybe you should ease off on like saying this kind of thing or something like that, like what I'm saying right now, that's criticism that's valuable. But just insulting someone and being like, this guy's an ass, I don't like him, well, then don't listen.
Well, the guy who called me a douche said I was kind of douchey sometimes, and that's still
okay. That's positive. Okay, that's a little less extreme.
No, he was nice about it.
That's fine.
And granted, a couple episodes there, I was being a little assy, so I apologize for that. But we get impassioned on this show. We have things that we get heated about, and things that we're really, there are times where Steven really pisses me off, where he's like, "Oh, Rob, I don't really see it that way," and I'm like, "God, I hate you.
That's never happened.
You can kill Metal Man with just one shot of the metal. Come on."
I don't see it that way.
Oh my God! I linked you to 2 videos.
I reject your reality.
I linked you to 2 videos. I'm just gonna look at my Bloodborne statue because it makes me very happy.
Just think of me as the bad guy from Psychopaths. I just want you to feel hatred so you can make your own decisions and live life like a human.
Thank you everybody for listening to the show. Be sure to give us positive reviews on iTunes. And for Steven, Caitlin, and Tooker, thank you very much for listening, and we will see you all later.